Hey everyone, welcome to another hashtag BI Livecast series. My name is EB Moss and I'm the SVP of Content and Community here at Brand Innovators. And today I am thrilled to kick off this live stream event because we're really offering up great content and definitely a warm community via this phenomenal lineup of women in brand marketing and some very savvy moderators too. Before we get started, I really wanted to thank all of the marketers, the sponsors, and even you, the audience, for helping to make this event possible. Now, I'd mentioned that word community, and we really want you to be a part of it. So throughout the event, you'll be able to use the Q&A widget. I think it's like down at the bottom of your screen, and a chat widget also down there, and would really encourage you to engage with our speakers and other attendees and let them know you're here. Use the widgets throughout the program. We love it, and we can grill our speakers that way too. Part of the reason I'm also excited to MC today is the opportunity to introduce you to our first speaker, Stephanie Gallo. She is the CMO of the famed winery E.J. Gallo, and keeping community is really, really important in our marketing world, and she is proof. She and I worked on a marketing project some 20 years ago, so keep your friends close. Hello, Stephanie.
Hey, how are you?
Great. I'm so thrilled to welcome you to this stage. It's been a while, and I'm glad we've stayed in touch. And you also have a terrific moderator, Peter V.S. Bond. He is the VP of Partner Development at Fetch Rewards. Now, I don't know Peter yet, but I sure know Fetch Rewards because he has helped me save money many times. You might not have known that, but you did. So thank you, Peter. And if you want to, there you go. Your mic is off. I'm going to let you take it away, and then we'll pop back at the end. Thank you.
EB, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to know that you're saving money along with over 14 million other active users of our mobile app. So as EB said, my name's Peter V.S. Bond. I work at Fetch Rewards. We are a mobile loyalty platform with 14 million active users that are being rewarded for buying the brands they love. I also co-host a popular CPG retail industry podcast, The CPG Guys. As EB mentioned, our guest today is the Chief Marketing Officer for Ernest and Julio Gallo Winery. It was founded by her grandfather and great uncle over 85 years ago. It's now the largest family-owned winery in the world, exporting nearly 100 wine brands and 20 spirit brands to 90 countries. She's also heavily involved in the development of innovative new products, which has led to numerous highly successful brand launches. So please join me in welcoming to this conversation Stephanie Gallo. Stephanie, how are you today?
Good. Hi, Peter. How are you?
I am doing terrific. I'm particularly excited to host this session because of the industry segment you're in. It's near and dear to my heart. And I know we're going to have a really lively conversation. So why don't we just jump right into it? And I've got a series of questions. We'll see what the audience also has to add to that. But let's start with, at a high level, that E&J Gallo's stated mission is to democratize wine for consumers in the United States and throughout the world. Can you help explain what you mean by that and what were kind of the market conditions that led to you establishing this mission?
So, thank you so much for that question. I think that in order to best answer that question, if it's okay with you, I would just like to take a few minutes to give you the context of the founding of our company, because I think that when folks understand kind of like the founding energy, I think that the mission to democratize wine becomes very clear. So our company was founded in 1933 by my grandfather, Ernest, and my great uncle, Julio. They were 23 and 24 years respectively. And during that time, they started with a very simple mission, and it was to transform the United States from a beer and whiskey drinking culture to a wine drinking culture. As the company grew, their vision was really to democratize wine in the United States. As we fast forward today, what we say within the four walls of our company is that we failed to live up to that mission. 85 years later, 86 years later. And the primary reason for that is that wine is still very much a niche category in the United States. 80% of the volume is consumed by 11% of the population. And, also when you look at just where we are as a country on a per capita consumption, while the United States is the fourth largest in US wine production, we rank 39 as far as per capita wine consumption globally, behind countries like Uruguay, Denmark, and Iceland. So, when we think about really making wine part of the American fabric, we think that we have a long way to go. So that's really what democratizing wine is. It's really making it accessible for all that choose to participate in the category.
That's great, Stephanie. I want to talk about the impact of the pandemic. It's so prevalent in our lives. Given what has happened, is wine now perceived as more of a casual social beverage as people started to change their consumption patterns during the pandemic? And is it less of an elitist beverage? What are the what are ultimately the implications for your ability to market wine since this all started to unfold?
Yeah, so, I think that what we noticed with the pandemic was really a major shift in where people were consuming alcohol. So during the pandemic, obviously the on-premise establishments shut down and people were starting to shift their consumption habits away from on-premise to their home environments. And, what we noticed was that, yes, people were consuming more wine, but they were consuming more wine and alcohol beverages at home. As we are emerging out of the pandemic, what we've noticed is that wine consumption has remained pretty much the same prior to the pandemic. So, I think that we were hoping that the pandemic would introduce a lot of people to wine for a lot of hypotheses, right? Like they had the time to consume wine at home. They were cooking more meals at home. But really what we realized through the work that we're doing is that consumption patterns stayed the same, but where people were consuming wine just happened to change.
So then how does that have implications for your overall marketing strategy if they're changing the venue in which they're consuming that wine?
I think that for the most part, the marketing strategy really is around, during the pandemic, it was really around, making sure that our messaging was relevant to how people were consuming the products. We obviously stopped promoting our products in channels where they were simply not open, and we were shifting the mix and investing in channels where people were able to purchase our products. During the pandemic, which was a blessing for our industry, is that it definitely accelerated purchase of alcohol beverages in online. And for a whole host of reasons, to buy wine online or alcohol beverages online, it's not really a great user experience. But the pandemic really encouraged folks to use the online channel as a way to access their alcohol beverages. So I think the stats was, prior to the pandemic, 1 in 10 consumers were purchasing alcohol online. And then during the pandemic and after the pandemic, 1 in 5 consumers were purchasing alcohol online. So that's a significant shift in buying behavior that we want to continue to support and accelerate as we move forward.
All right. So when I think about how to grow brands, the first 3 things that come to mind is, 1, you can increase your points of distribution, right? Availability of your product. Another one is you can innovate, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Another one is you can acquire. So in January of 2021, E&J Gallo closed a major acquisition of 30 wine brands from another leading manufacturer. Can you expand upon this acquisition and speak, why you thought about these 30 brands as being appropriate and complementary for your portfolio, and how has that accelerated your overall growth objectives?
So, as you mentioned, we approach growth in, three different ways. One is innovation, two is through partnerships, and three is through acquisitions. And we felt that the brands that we acquired from Constellation really helped us accelerate our mission, quite candidly, to democratize wine, to make wine accessible. And our portfolio, we have over now 130 brands, and we compete in every segment. And as we continue to invest in our premium and luxury business, we also saw that there was a tremendous opportunity to continue to invest in what we're calling the below $11 category. And the reason why the below $11 category is so important to the wine industry is that our research shows that most consumers, as they come into the wine category, enter in under below $11. So if you're a niche category that's looking to become accessible, having affordable products where people can begin to enter the category, learn and experiment is absolutely critical. And what's also interesting is that as consumers enter in at $11, what we're noticing is that as they come back, they're 2 times more likely to come back the second time at below $11. We also love below $11 because we think it's ripe for innovation, particularly around product as well as format. And we know that one of the barriers to consumption for wine is really taste. And we think that the below $11 category enables us to do a lot of fun, innovative product offerings that can really welcome consumers into our category. So for us, it was, my grandfather always used to say, just do the obvious. And acquiring the 30 brands at Constellation was really obvious. It was a great complement to our portfolio, and it really helped us accelerate our vision to truly democratize wine.
All right, well, let's talk about one of the other forms of growth, which is innovation. Your company, E&J Gallo, is well known for driving category innovation, as you mentioned, both form and function. Can you talk a little bit about this? Highlight some particular ones of note you think are remarkable, and speak about how and even speak about how your culture accounts for, obviously with innovation there's going to be on occasion failure. How do you learn from that? How does it drive success for future innovation?
So you're so funny, because once you use the word remarkable, you set the bar really, really high. So I think that to understand really why we're passionate about innovation is that it truly is one of our core values. So we have 7 core values at Gallo. Innovation is one of them, and we place, place great value on big ideas, and so we are constantly looking to challenge conventional ways of doing things, whether it's within brand management, within sales, within operations, within production, and so. We think that to be a family-owned company, it's absolutely critical that you constantly have to reinvent yourself in order to stay relevant, in order to meet the changing needs of consumers. And in order to do that, you have to have innovation as part of your agenda. Some of our, remarkable innovations, I think that that if you look at our portfolio, and I would say over the last 3 years or the last 4 or 5 years, I would like to highlight 2. One is wine-based and one is spirits-based. But from a wine-based standpoint, we're really proud of a line extension under Barefoot, which is what we call our Fruitscatos. We know that entry-level wine consumers love Moscato, which is a varietal that is very sweet and flavorful. And we came out with a line extension under Barefoot that enhances the Moscato with fruit. So it's a peach Fruitscato, it's a strawberry Fruitscato, it's a cranberry Fruitscato, blueberry Fruitscato. And the reason why I really love that innovation is that it truly lives up to making wine accessible, easy for people to understand what they're consuming, and it truly welcomes them in a friendly manner into our category. The second innovation that we're really proud of, and it was a brand that was created organically, was our High Noon Sun Sips, which is our vodka-based seltzer. And it truly was an innovation when we crafted it, I think 3 or 4 years ago, where we recognized that consumers, when they were consuming regular hard seltzer, they naturally assumed that they naturally thought that what they were consuming was a vodka-based seltzer. And we felt that going out to the market with a premium seltzer with real ingredients of vodka and real fruit was a point of differentiation. And we thought that the market would accept it, that consumers would accept it, and they have. And I think that it's been a great addition to our portfolio, and it's really accelerated our growth into the ready-to-drink segment.
I love how you describe the entry point as some of the sweeter wines, the Moscato. I think about when I met my wife, she really only drank Moscato and Riesling. It was very much in that order. And now as more of a selfish reason that I didn't want to always have to order red by the glass when we went out to dinner, I acclimated her to some other red varietals, and now that is more decidedly her flavor and flavor profile. But I totally understand what you're talking about there and why that was such a great way to get people engaged in the category specifically.
And when you look at within wine, what is really driving growth, it is wines that have flavor. So another category that's growing is New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs. And because you love wine, you get what I'm talking about. New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs deliver a tremendous amount of flavor. It's not necessarily sweet, but it's definitely flavorful. And then the other segment that's really growing is all things sparkling, and particularly our Prosecco, like our La Marca Prosecco. And when you drink a Prosecco, it has flavor. So, consumers are definitely telling us something. And, we definitely think that a major trend in drinks is full flavor, it's flavorful products.
And I think with the Prosecco and the celebration element that is usually associated with it, everybody's looking for a reason to celebrate these days after a couple of years of challenge.
During the pandemic, we did see sparkling sales accelerate as well.
So let me shift to how you build out long-term loyalty with the consumers who are buying your brands. Would love to understand, as a portfolio, how E&J Gallo is seeking to build loyalty mechanics into your overall marketing strategy.
It's funny that that you asked that question. So I like to say that what makes marketing so challenging within the wine category specifically, it's different than spirits, is that our category, the consumer behavior is very promiscuous. More so than I think any other category that I've studied. And I think that there's two ways that we are looking at it. I think one, we're committed to truly building brands in a non-branded category. And so, with that, when consumers discover a wine that they like, often they don't remember what they're consuming. And so they obviously then move to something else. But we truly believe in the power of brands in a non-branded category. The second, and I think that it's so apropos that you mentioned it, we are looking at trying to solve the loyalty challenge. I think that there's two primary, ways that we're looking at it. The first is why the partnership with Fetch was really important for us. I think that it's a program and a vehicle that really allows us to drive loyalty in a promiscuous category. And we're learning, as you know, we're seeing what works, what doesn't work, but it's been proven to be pretty effective for us. And then the second we actually inherited from Constellation was a loyalty program, and Black Box has it. And again, we're learning. So it's a muscle that we're really trying to develop because in our category, it's something that remains elusive.
Yeah, I think this concept of having a portfolio of brands that
Yep.
collectively can build loyalty, particularly as you described in a promiscuous category,
Yes.
where I think about at the height of my wine collection, I had about 1,000 bottles. If I had more than 10 or 12 of any one particular brand, I would have been a little bit surprised. So in your ability to aggregate those brands and bring attention to your whole portfolio to a degree, that seems like a pretty sound marketing strategy.
And like I said, it's something that hasn't been done, and we're looking to do it. And I think that that's where hopefully CRM is going to play an important role for us moving forward.
Yeah. Let me shift to this concept of working direct to consumer, because I'm pretty schooled in the concept around the three-tiered system and the legality of ownership. The manufacturer, the distributor, and the retailer have to be different entities. The one carve out for that has traditionally been promoted primarily by ultra premium wines in wine clubs, right? So your ability to buy direct to consumer. Where does kind of that element of selling to consumers fit into your overall portfolio, and how do you market that?
So one of our stated marketing strategies is that we want to make it easy for consumers to find, shop, and enjoy our brands. And you mentioned this before, but making wines accessible is critical, and direct to consumer falls nicely within that strategy of making it easy for consumers to find, shop, and enjoy our brands, and truly being present everywhere. So direct to consumer is absolutely an essential strategy for our luxury portfolio. As you mentioned, it's critical from a wine club standpoint, from being able to sell small lot wines directly to consumers that are loyal to that particular estate is absolutely essential. We have, and I know that you mentioned this in a pre-call, that we also have what's called the Barrel Room, which is basically our online store for our portfolio, for our entire portfolio. And that is the online store where consumers can purchase the majority of our brands directly. So, we still believe in the three-tier partnership. It's critical to our business for obvious reasons, but it's important for us to follow the consumer. And if consumers want to purchase our products online, we want to be there. We want to make sure that our products are readily accessible for them.
And are these mechanisms particularly helpful in building what you previously referred to as CRM, consumer
Yes.
Relationship management?
Yes, it's critical.
Yeah, I would think so. Getting those relationships, being able to understand what they're buying, how frequently they're buying,
and why they're buying.
And why they're buying. Absolutely. Yeah. Why behind the buy.
Correct.
Absolutely. Okay. So let me shift a little bit and talk about cause marketing. Ian J. Gallo promotes cause marketing in your overall go-to-market strategy from what I've been reading. Can you elaborate on, why cause marketing is a core component of your business direction?
So again, going back to the founding of our company, our founders really were practicing sustainability before, or sustainable business practices before they've come into vogue. They've always believed in the power of environmental sustainability as well as social sustainability, always, since the founding of our company. And we actually believe that one of the most exciting spheres of sustainability right now is social sustainability. And, we are extremely passionate about our efforts to support charitable causes across our portfolio. And when I was reflecting on this question, I was really proud to see how many of our brands are supporting sustainable efforts that make sense. So, one at our luxury portfolio, we have a brand called Orange Swift that's really rooted in the Napa Valley. And as you know, Napa Valley was ravaged by a wildfire in 2020. And the team came out with a brand that was available direct to consumer called Burnt Sacrifice. And it was a one-time special release. And the wine really helped raise awareness, as well as funds for the Napa Valley Community Disaster Relief Fund. So, that's an example of just really leveraging the power of business to do good in the communities where we do business. At the other end of the scale, I think about one of our brands called Liberty Creek, and the brand has always supported efforts around veterans and our troops. And we've aligned with an organization called Folds of Honor that provides scholarships for families of American fallen soldiers and disabled veterans. And usually around Veterans Day, we run a program for every bottle sold, we donate $1 to Folds of Honor. It could also look like Barefoot, who's had a long-standing relationship with the LGBTQ plus community. And one of the things that Barefoot is doing is they've launched a Bubbly Pride collection where we have, in essence, special designer bottles that are available for purchase. And, cases sold benefit an organization called Free Mom Hugs. So, the list goes on, but it's something that I'm really proud of our organization for truly embracing different ways where our brands can give back to the communities that they serve.
All right, thank you for that. So in addition to that, and this is in keeping with the theme of today's series, which is women in brand marketing, E&J Gallo has created an entity called the Women of Wine Employee Resource Group, or ERG. Can you share with our audience what's the important work that this ERG is seeking to address and deliver against?
Yeah, so at Gallo, we have around 8 ERGs, and I think many people know what ERGs are, but they're called employee resource groups, and it's groups where folks can come together around shared values or shared experiences. And so our Women of Wine and Spirits ERG is really focused on enhancing the professional development of women within the organization. And how does this manifest itself? Right now, our sales organization is hosting Women of Wine conferences throughout the United States based on region. And it's where our female sales executives come together for 2 days, and they really focus on personal and professional growth experiences. And so I'm excited. I'm going to be attending my first one next Wednesday in Charlotte, but it's a great way to form networks, to find sponsors, and to really work on professional development opportunities, whatever they may be.
And Stephanie, how do men serve as allies in this effort?
It's great. I think that our executive sponsor of the Women of Wine organization happens to be a male. I think you might know him, Tom Gillespie. So Tom is the executive sponsor, and one of the panels that happens at these conferences is, the power of male allyship. And I think that it's absolutely critical that if men in an organization want to participate, they're definitely invited in, and any support that they can provide is greatly appreciated as well.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I've told you in the past that I'm in a previous conversation, I'm heavily involved in Next Up, formerly known as Network of Executive Women, and as a male ally.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen just by the advancing women in the workplace isn't going to just happen by women acting alone. There have to be allies in the effort for this to work effectively. Not to be confused with Women of Wine. back 3 years ago, you also launched another organization called Women Behind the Wine.
Yeah.
How does this differ from Women of Wine, and what is its
Yeah.
mission?
So Women Behind the Wine actually started 3 years ago, and it was a program that was put together for our sales organization to take out to the trade. And it really helps sell a portfolio of products. And the objective of the program was to continue to celebrate and empower women in the wine and spirits industry. And what we basically do is that we highlight the diverse women within our organization that are behind our wine and spirits. And it can look like our vineyard manager, it can look like winemakers, it can look like some of our distillers. And we've launched this program in partnership with the Women of the Vine and Spirits Foundation. And proceeds of this program really go to support a scholarship fund that we have established. So we're excited about it. We're 3 years in the making, and it really focuses on our super premium and luxury wines so that we could go ahead and take out to the trade. And more importantly, what we've realized is that our trade partners are really looking to support brands You talk about, socially responsible brands, and it's something that our trade was asking for. We really want to support women that are behind the wine and spirits. What programs do you have? So we really created this in response to what some of our trade partners were asking for.
Brilliant. My last question in this area is around promoting female entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship, both in your company and your industry. I know from our prep conversation, you have some interesting origin stories associated with, would love for you to share with the audience.
I love this question because, and I think when I shared this with you, I don't know if you were bemused or surprised, but I started this conversation by sharing the founding story that the company was founded by my grandfather Ernest and my great uncle Julia with $5,000. The $5,000 loan was from my great grandmother. So it was my grandmother Amelia's mother. So Ernest's mother-in-law gave the brothers $5,000 to start the company. How she had $5,000 in 1933 is a separate story. I mean, she was an amazing woman, but she gave them the seed money to start the company. And I like to say that she probably is the most successful venture capitalist in drinks with the $5,000 investment. So female entrepreneurship is something that is part of our founding story, and something that we truly embrace. I look at, supporting female entrepreneurs in two ways. One, through partnerships. So as I mentioned to you before, when we look at growth, we have a partnership with a female founded brand called Bev. It's a little wine brand in a can. It's started by an incredibly dynamic founder, a woman by the name of Alix Peabody, and we are her distribution partner. And she is committed to creating a brand with a social mission to break the glass, and really create safe spaces for positive alcohol beverage consumption and culture. And then the other way that we support entrepreneurship is really within our organization, and I call this entrepreneurship. As I told you, and as I mentioned before, we place big value on big ideas. And when I look at, our innovation team, it's comprised of many women. When I look at our new product development team, the folks that are, responsible for crafting our remarkable products, it's led by women. So I think that we can support women in the industry through partnerships, and I think we can support women within the four walls of Gallo through providing interesting career opportunities for them.
So to that end, I'll ask you one more question before I shift over to some of the audience questions. But in mentioning the people who are leading your innovation, and from the people I've worked with, it's my perception that you're attracting some pretty premium marketing talent to your organization. What do you think is the driving force behind that?
Oh gosh, sometimes you kind of reflect and you say, how lucky can we get? And I feel truly blessed that we just have such amazing folks that we get to work with each and every day. I think it really comes down to three key pillars. I think the first is people are really inspired by our mission to democratize wine, to really make wine accessible. When you're charged with growing a category, the only way that we're going to grow a category and move it from niche to truly, accessible is through innovation. And I think that the marketers that come here are really inspired by the vision of what we want to do and how we want to go do it. We are committed to organic brand innovation, and there's not that many companies that are committed to organic brand innovations. That's the first thing. The second is that we're very explicit on what our corporate values are. And, it's integrity, it's respect, it's humility, it's commitment, teamwork, innovation. And I think that the people that come to Gallo will often say to you, my personal values align with the corporate values, and they find it to be a great fit. So I think that's the third and the second. And the third is we really want people when they come to Gallo to do the best work of their professional careers while they're here. And I think giving people the opportunity to do amazing things, align with their personal values, align with a pretty cool mission is, I think, what enables us to attract world-class talent.
All right, well, let me open this up to some questions that we've been getting through the Q&A function. If anyone has any questions, by all means, add them in there. We'll do our best to address those. First one's from Trisha Patterson, and she's asking, Stephanie, you've already blown my mind with some of your wine consumption stats. Who do you think is your biggest target for growth? She mentions women 25 to 30, men 45 plus, et cetera. And how are you shaping your campaign messaging to that segment? I've got to imagine that it's, depends upon the product in your portfolio, but I'd sure love to hear from you how you think about your targeting capabilities.
It's with a portfolio this diverse, it's complicated, but I like to drive focus. And so for right now, what I'm really focused on is looking at the upcoming Gen Z consumer that will be entering into the category. And the reason for that is that it's a very elusive group, and what they prioritize in beverages is very different than what millennials, Gen Xers, and boomers prioritize. And so my efforts over the next 2 to 3 years is really going to be focused on driving empathy, as well as products that are going to appeal to the Gen Z consumer, because they are the next generation wine drinkers. And how they're coming into the category is very different than how previous generations have come into the category. So, Trisha, I don't know if I answered your question directly, but I think that hopefully giving you that context is helpful in terms of where we're going to be spending our time. And by the way, they're just turning 21 and 22. So and there's a huge cohort that's coming in. So we think that there's a lot of opportunity there for the future of our category.
Thank you for that. Mark Sampson, he asks a little bit more about age demographic. I think you've kind of addressed that, but
yeah,
the $11 price point you mentioned, is that true for not only say a multi-serve bottle of wine, or is that price target something that you think about when you create multi-packs of different products, say putting wine into cans and then selling them as multi-packs? And why I'd love to personally know a little bit about what your research tells you the $11 is that trigger level.
It's $11 and below.
11 and below, right.
It's 11 and below. So when you look at making wine accessible, entry-level wines, when you look at alcohol beverage in general, and you have a choice of a spirit, let's say a vodka, a beer or a wine, on a per ounce serving, wine is still the most expensive beverage. So if you have a choice to engage in a category and you're new to the category, wine is still, from a price standpoint, positioned as an elite product over the beer and the spirits. And so part of the reason why we really focus on under $11 is we think it's important to drive entry into the category. Cans, we do sell those at a premium, but we believe that the reason why cans and alternative formats are important is that they really fit into the lifestyle of how consumers are consuming alcohol beverages today. And it's easier. You don't need a corkscrew to open it.
Well, EB has reappeared, which means that our conversation is drawing to a close. Stephanie, thank you so much for speaking with me and sharing.
No problem, Peter. It was awesome.
That was truly awesome. Peter, thank you from Fetch Rewards. And what a great conversation. I love the idea of how people are consuming wine more at home and how you've democratized wine among consumers down to women for wine with professional opportunities. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
By both. Now, in the last conversation, you heard Stephanie say that her grandfather advised in business to do the obvious. So up next, how perfect is this? Our moderator is Mae Karwowski. She's the CEO and founder of Obviously, a leading global influencer marketing agency and tech platform. So that was obviously the next great moderator to bring on the stage. And our great marketer, who has frequently joined us on the Brand Innovator stage, is Betty Ann Fialkov. She's head of entertainment and culture for Him and Hers, a company that, I love this description, offers a virtual front door to the healthcare system. So welcome to you both. Thanks so much for joining us. And I'll let you take it away, obviously.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for that, that great intro. And hi, everyone. My name is Meg Karwowski. I'm CEO and founder of Obviously. We're a full service influencer marketing agency working with the world's top brands. And I'm so excited to be here with Betty Ann Fialkov. Betty Ann and I go way back. I'll get into that a little bit more. But in terms of women in the influencer marketing space, she has been at the forefront and continues to be at the forefront. And at a number of brands, we've done a lot of work together. I started Obviously 9 years ago, and I think we started working together 7 years ago at Google. Yes. So just to give you a little bio, because Betty Ann can be modest, but she worked at Google as the celebrity and influencer and fashion partnerships manager for hardware. I actually remember, I think you were on the phone. We were on the phone and we were trying to get custom pixel cases for influencers. Yeah. And you were like, the yellows look like oranges in the plant. And I'm like, wow, Betty Ann is like on top of it. And this is going to be a super cool activation. So that was like my first intro to you. And then moving over to Lyft. And then as the director of culture and entertainment and head of influencer marketing. And then now at Hims and Hers as the head of entertainment and culture. Also, another connection that we have is that we are part of one of the great college rivalries where I went to UNC Chapel Hill and Betty Ann went to Duke. And yet, we still make it work. So
I love that. Thank you so much for the intro, Mae. I mean, you nailed it. There's not much else that I would add. I think it's been amazing to work with you over the years and see the industry grow and change and develop. I still remember when we met, and I quickly brought you over to Google to help us with all things micro-influencer, and micro-influencer wasn't even a term at that time. And the technology was not even, where it is today, but we'll get into that later.
Awesome. Yeah, let's kind of start with current day. What are you really seeing in terms of your macro and celebrity influencer strategy, and how are you approaching that at Hims and Hers?
Yeah, so I really like to think of influencer marketing, celebrity partnerships as a tiered approach. So if you think of a pyramid, with the top of the pyramid being the celebrity with the largest following, being able to recognize them, facial recognition, and then going down from that, having macro and micro influencers that really act as kind of like the supporting cast to whatever that brand message is that is being, discussed by the big celebrities. So I'm in the process of implementing that at Hims and Hers. We're really focused on our mental health vertical. So just for context, for those of you out there that may not know, Hims and Hers is a telehealth company. And as Evie said in the intro, we're really about opening doors for everyone, democratizing stigmatized conditions, or destigmatizing stigmatized conditions, and really making sure that healthcare is accessible. And we focus on a couple of core verticals, mental health being one of the priorities, but we also focus on hair loss, ED, as well as skincare. But currently, we're really doubling down on mental health and building out a robust, celebrity and influencer strategy around that. I think the tiered approach really helps to not only increase engagement, buzz, awareness, PR, but on our end also increase conversions as well.
Awesome. Yeah. And you've have quite a roster. I'd love to just hear a little bit about how do you go and like identify those people to really work with Hims and Hers?
Yeah, so currently we have an amazing roster of celebrities. I just joined Hims and Hers in January, so all of these partnerships were before my time, but I've inherited them, so I'm working on them now. But we have J-Lo, Gronk, Miley Cyrus. Those are current partnerships. So J-Lo is our partner for women's hair loss. Gronk is one of our partners for men's hair loss as well as mental health. And then Miley is our partner for skincare as well as mental health. So, I think in thinking through who is the right partner for us, what is extremely important is to make sure that the authentic story is there, that these celebrities actually have a connection to the condition that we're discussing and have experienced it. So J-Lo has been an amazing partner because she actually experienced hair loss and was willing to talk about it and her treatment of it. And so because of that, we're able to tell this story with her that's so real and so authentic and relatable to women who are going through hair loss. So when we're looking for our future partners, that is definitely making sure that they have that connection, that authentic story to the condition that we're talking about.
Awesome. And I think, so many people know the term influencer, but really, if you could kind of give us a peek behind the curtain in conversations, say with like a J-Lo or a Miley or someone at the celebrity or even macro influencer level, how are you really figuring out if they, do have the condition and if their story is really authentic enough? Are you, like sitting down and kind of just, they're just telling you, hey, I have these issues and I'm willing to talk, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think, at a high level, a lot of the people, for example, for mental health, a lot of the celebrities that we are, in talks to or going to go out to, or macro influencers, they've already been vocal about it in some capacity, whether it's their, whether they're posting about therapy on Instagram or they've been interviewed about it. And so, that gives us our ground floor of like, okay, we know that they're interested in this. We know that they've experienced this. Where we have to dive deeper is, if they've taken, prescriptions in order to help them, if like what their treatments have been. So we dive deeper into that either by talking to their agents, their managers, really getting intel on that. Again, it's really important from the start, and we're very clear when we start having these conversations, like this is what we're looking for. We don't want to work with somebody who, on the mental health side, we don't want to work with somebody that is just passionate about mental wellness. Like we want somebody that can talk about their anxiety, can talk about their depression. Because that's what's relatable to people. And that's what people, want to hear about and learn from.
Yeah, I think that, the term authenticity in influencer marketing is definitely said quite a bit, but it's
Totally.
quite another thing to be like, no, this person is telling a like honest to God true story.
Totally.
And they love this brand and they take this product and this partnership makes so much sense. And when that's not the case, you really can see that play out in the comments, and the performance just isn't there as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's super important. Awesome. And kind of what's next for Hims and Hers? Where do you want to kind of take the influencer strategy going forward?
Yeah. So one thing that my team and I are in the process of implementing is an influencer ambassador program. So definitely had experience doing that together at Google when we launched Team Pixel, which was essentially an ambassador program where we had a small group of influencers where we would give them hardware across our slew of products at Google. And that was so fun when we worked on that together. But here at Hims and Hers, we haven't had an ambassador program in the past. And so I'm a true believer in it because I think building these relationships so that they're not just like transactional one-offs is important. And for us in the space, in the telehealthcare space that we're in, there's two things that I'm trying to achieve. One, brand awareness, and that top of the funnel awareness that you get with influencer marketing. But two, we also want to be able to use this content for ads and for the actually getting conversions as well. And so implementing an ambassador program, we're going to be able to really, again, like take out that like transactional feeling from it, where we're just like focusing on growth marketing and creating ads, and really turn the ambassadors into the voice of our brand. And so we're in the process of starting to implement this and execute on the strategy. And we're really thinking through, again, like, micro influencers, macro influencers who have connections to these conditions that we're talking about. And then we're thinking through, like, over the year, like how this comes to life, how we are, able to get content that we're going to, that's going to live on the influencers' own pages as well as our own socials. And then how are we going to get content that we can, turn into ads that we can use across digital? And so, and then also, what are we going to be able to give to these influencers that's not just, a cash payment? Like what opportunities, perks, access are we able to give them, so we're able to turn this program into something where influencers are coming to us and want to be part of?
Do you have any sneak peeks of what some of those perks might be? Because at Google, I mean,
Yeah.
you're taking people to Sundance, and I'm like, awesome. Sundance Film Festival, it was pretty unbelievable. And then, and at Lyft, going to Beyonce concerts. So what's kind of in store?
Yeah, so we are going to be having some really exciting events come up at Hims and Hers, which we haven't done in the past. So access to these events in LA and New York. We're also thinking through what that, gifting strategy is. We obviously have so many products. I recently just saw Kylie sent out a suitcase filled with all of her products, which we want to create something where we're sending something that's juicy, that it's big, because we have so many incredible products across all of our verticals. And so, and we're continuing to launch products as well. So figuring out those over-the-counter products and how we can, deliver them in a fun, unique unboxing experience throughout the year.
Yeah, just for anyone who maybe isn't as familiar with influencer marketing, this concept of unboxing is really unique to the influencer space. If you're on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, it was really made famous with beauty influencers, where they'll receive a package, say they bought something on Ulta online, and then they open it and they talk through everything that's in the package, and now they can be quite elaborate and kind of the bigger the better in terms of really getting influencers excited about a given brand. I love the comment that you made, because I think it is really new for so many people in the influencer space to be talking about actually creating paid ads from influencer content. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about just what that looks like tactically and why influencers like it.
Yeah, so uh, we've been doing this a lot at Hims and Hers, even before my time. And what, essentially we whitelist the accounts that are creating content, and we turn that content into paid posts. So it looks like it's from the influencer, but it's actually boosted. So there's more eyeballs that are driven to it, but it feels like as you're scrolling through your feed, it feels organic because it's actually content from the influencer versus content from our brand. And it tends to perform really well when somebody sees content from their favorite influencer, and it's like served to them in this format.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the difference between a creative agency creating, a 15-second video on TikTok versus an influencer who's just organically lives and breathes TikTok 24/7. And we've seen that just works so well. And then also influencers love it too, because not every single thing has to be posted through their own account.
Yeah.
Which is great. Very cool. And then I'd love for you to talk a little bit about maybe sticking on Hims and Hers for a minute. How do you really get executive buy-in when you're really trying, you're relatively new to the role, you're really trying to, transform and have a real focus on influencers and authentic stories. How do you do that? How do you get that buy-in? How do you get that budget? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question because I just went through this. So, I think specifically to Hims and Hers, what's been very helpful for me is to present real examples based off of my career, showing them this is what worked at Google. This was, how we built Team Pixel. This was why it worked. This was why YouTube content creation worked. Then looking at Lyft, like the same thing. Here are examples of experience when we at Lyft, we partnered with LeBron, and we partnered going back to like that pyramid idea. We partnered with LeBron, and we partnered with macro influencers, and we partnered with micro influencers in order to really create this big brand message. And so using those examples and basically giving case studies. So it's definitely a lot of education. And I think, I'm coming to the company at a point where, they've been doing a lot of growth marketing, and now we are, thinking about brand a lot. And so it's exciting time because everything that I've done in the past has really been about brand awareness. It hasn't been about, downloading the app or conversions. Really, it's like the metrics that we've been looking at in my past have been really laddered up into brand. And so now I'm at this point where I'm able to kind of like combine both of them, which is really exciting. But getting that buy-in, just education, stats, real numbers, showing them what works. I think that is key in order to convince them to think in a different way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's actually a perfect segue. I'm actually going to show a few things for the audience, just in terms of some really great work and examples, because I think that you've just done so much awesome work in the space that everyone should really, let me just.
Well, we've done it together. So.
Yeah. Can you see? Can you see it?
Not yet.
Okay, let me just see if I can do this. Hold on.
There it goes.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, maybe you want to, I love how concrete these examples are, because it just shows like how to layer on influencer marketing on top of so many different initiatives within a company, and how to really do it in just such a like best in class way. So I'd love for you to maybe walk us through one or two of these.
Yeah. So, I think with Lyft, a lot of what I was doing around influencer marketing was really around our initiatives that were always giving back. So whether we were, partnering around like voting, for example, so like the cause-driven programs. So a great partnership that we did was around Lift Up and More Than a Vote, where we were really encouraging people to, take a Lyft, take a city bike, whatever, mode of transportation provided by Lyft, and get out and vote. And so what we found a lot with the influencers was that tying to this like cause-driven initiative was always important because influencers are looking for something more. It's not, just about the products anymore. Like, yes, the products are of course important, but like tying to something bigger and giving them a cause to help promote is so enticing for influencers. And around these moments in time, like the elections and everything, it like we saw so many influencers wanted to be part of this program because it was just such like an amazing initiative. Then, of course, we did more like hyper local programs where we were focused on, and these were non-cause related, but, City Bike in New York, we were launching in different boroughs and, tying to really hyper local influencers in those communities to show that, they could take City Bike. And then a lot of times, which was always fun working on together. And you kind of brought this up before, but we would send influencers to events and, like here you mentioned the South Beach Food and Wine Festival, but we also did a lot with the Infatuation and EatsCon and various, sort of cultural events, even concerts, like you mentioned Beyonce, we sent influencers to.
I love that.
Yeah, that was awesome. But, we weren't part of the event per se. Like in some cases we had a partnership, but like, with Beyonce, like we weren't part of the event, but we sent influencers, they took Lyft, they talked about their experience, and it was really tied to this sort of like cultural moment, which was fun.
Yeah, I think one thing that's so awesome about this too is just that so many brands do some really, really great things, especially with regards to causes. And very few people actually see them. They don't really see the light of day. They don't really get air and space on social media. Whereas it's such a great match because then you have creators who are like, oh, cool. I didn't know that Lyft was doing this. Like, I want to tell my followers how much I love Lyft and how awesome it is that they're doing this cause related campaign work. So it's great. It gives awesome content for the influencer to really engage their audience around a passion point. And it really promotes something awesome that the company is doing at the same time. Sometimes brands don't necessarily always think like, oh, we could really give some space and really like shine a light on some of the awesome work that we're doing. So I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, here's some
fun.
Great content. I know it's so fun to actually find the influencers for these things. So when we do like hyper local campaigns, being like, okay, cool. Who do we have? Who's in the Bronx? Who loves Lyft? Who can tell just like the best story possible. So.
Yeah. I always like to say why you guys are so great is like, I have come to you with really niche asks. Like, we need to find influencers in New Orleans who are,
I remember that one.
like who want to do something around Halloween and are available on these dates. And you're always able to somehow find them for us.
Yeah. And then, the creators are just so excited too, because a lot of times maybe they have 5,000 followers, they have 12,000 followers, and they're like, oh my God, Lyft wants to work with me on such a cool, like NOLA activation. Like, of course, I know how to do it. So that's awesome.
Oh yeah. This one too. You're bringing me back.
I know. Cool. And then maybe if you just want to speak to some of the work with Google. This is, it's just so interesting to see too. Maybe to talk through a few of these and then we can just talk about how the space has evolved.
Yeah. So Google, we did so much. What you were saying before, when we first started working together, we were having micro influencers, which like we weren't even using that term then, but we were having them basically create designs for phone cases and then like talk about them on their social. So we were working with a lot of photographers at first. And then as, my role changed, we launched Pixel 1, Pixel 2. We really expanded to other forms of hardware. We worked together on Jacquard, which was the smart jacket where you just would touch it, swipe it on your hand and you could answer your phone or do different things. We worked on Pixel Buds, to seed them to dozens of influencers. And then talk about them. And then all of the case partnerships that I launched. So as some context, I worked with various artists and celebrities in order to create these case special cases that essentially told a story. So worked with like some amazing artists like Jen Stark, Friends with You, then worked with some, I worked with Jeff Koons, Skrillex, Jeremy Scott, and around all of these partnerships, we would send the phone case and the phone to influencers and again, like have them tell a story and promote this. So that was always so much fun working on those. I think, TikTok didn't exist then. So like everything we were doing was basically on Instagram, and even like stories didn't exist at that point. like it's changed so much. Even like on your side, like the technology, I remember when we were first like working together like 7 or 8 years ago, we were like working out of like spreadsheets, and things have like developed so much on your side even. Yeah. It's really wild to see the space really growing and changing so quickly.
I know. Yeah. We've just spent so much time really and tech energy, just making sure that we can do very complex, very robust programming that, didn't exist. Video wasn't a format that we were doing very much outside of YouTube, about like 6, 7 years ago. So that's great. Where are you really seeing the space evolve now? What are you kind of, let's just stop sharing this. But
yeah. I mean, I think we're at sort of like this pivotal moment where I feel like influencers want to be real, which is great. And you're seeing that in, some of the content they're posting on Instagram. It's like, these dumps, like, like my May dump or like my dump of the week. And they're just like posting
the photo dump.
Yeah. Random pictures from their photo reel. I think also we're seeing this in the platforms that are popping up, like the Be Real app that recently launched, where you basically like, you take a photo of what's in front of you. It also takes a photo of you, and like, it's like one photo, that's it. You can't edit it. There's no filters. Their whole messaging, I think, is uncontrollable social media and real life without filters. And so I think there's this movement to, take away the filters, be real, like show that this is real life. This is me. Like you're seeing this, for on the Hims and Hers side, I'm really seeing this in the acne space, where influencers, huge influencers are talking about, their acne and showing themselves without makeup, and showing like their problems with acne. And so I think that this being real, like their followers want this. Like we want to see them without the makeup on, without the filters, like all of that.
Totally. I think and it really tracks back to like Instagram was getting so aspirational and like so almost staged. And I'm having my latte on my marble countertop, wearing my like perfect outfit with the light hitting me just so like I look amazing, compared to TikTok, where it's like I'm in my bedroom doing something kind of crazy, with a towel over my head to symbolize like I'm my mom talking to me. It's just like literally like night and day. And now with, Be Real, it's actually like, don't even pretend like you're doing something cool right now. Like just show us, like, I'm binging Netflix and I'm hanging out. And that's the moment of the day that they decided to catch. So I think it is really interesting. It's just that concept of authenticity is now very much like inherent to the new platforms too.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Awesome. So I think we have a few, love to open it up to some questions. I see a few in the chat. If anyone else has some, now's the time to definitely to ask. So Sarah Herring is asking Betty Ann, what tech or platforms do you use to manage your campaigns?
Yeah. So currently at Hims and Hers, we have a platform called Tracker that we use, but in the future, we're going to be working with, obviously, once we get this off the ground. So
I think that's a verbal. That's a verbal.
So, when I was at both Google and Lyft, from like a micro influencer point of view, we worked like exclusively with, obviously, and those campaigns that were run were then, of course, tracked by their proprietary technology. So Hims and Hers, we have a technology that like we use on our own. We're not running campaigns through it, but we use it to really track.
Yeah. And I would just add on too that especially for like really small brands or brands just starting out, there are a number of self-service tools. So there's like Grin and Creator IQ can be just a great place to start and really start to try to just engage with a few influencers, see what they think about your product, see what questions they ask you, what they'd be interested in talking about. And yeah, really just start to experiment. I think that's so important.
Yeah. When I was consulting, when I was out on maternity leave, I actually used a platform called Dovetail. And I thought it was really great for, somebody that, was on their own, alone, like doing this. It was very usable, user-friendly.
Awesome. And then we have a comment question from Kate Brockman saying, Betty Ann, I'm an early career social media manager, building an influencer ambassador program. Do you ever offer one-on-one coaching?
I love that question. And I am all about empowering women in this space. So definitely, we can definitely talk. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I think I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in without having like incredible female mentors. And so I know it can be challenging to get started in the space. And honestly, like when I got started in the space, like it did not exist. Like influencer marketing was not a career. And so it just sort of fell into it. And I molded my career and sort of, took the bull by the horns and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go deep into this and become an expert. And so like, I love to give back and, help others that are just starting out.
And Betty Ann has actually also done and is an advisor and an investor in different startups. Man, we could talk for a lot longer, but I think one really interesting one that we've worked on together is Trading TV.
Yeah.
And actually, if you want to just speak to that briefly, I think that's
so
really cool. Case study.
So I am an advisor for Trading TV, which is basically it's a social live streaming platform for financial content creators. And what's really interesting about it, it's not just a platform where you can go on and live stream and consume content, but you can actually trade on the platform as well, which makes it really unique. So you can watch your favorite, financial content creator talking about, the stock market, which is crashing or whatever. And you can actually like buy and sell stocks and in the future, NFTs and crypto and things like that. So yeah, we got to work on it together in order to find financial content creators. And so we, obviously in Trading TV partnered in order to discover some of these creators that are out there.
Yeah, I think like finding and really building that trust with those creators too is just so important. There's so much happening in the tech finance space, but to really be able to approach them to like, hey, we'd love to pitch you on this concept. We'd love to have Betty Ann answer any of your questions. We'd love to just build a relationship before we even see if you might want to be on the platform. That just worked so well. And I think they also just gave really solid feedback too, which is, when you're starting a company, any and all feedback from creators is just like so helpful.
Definitely. I mean, firsthand, you started your company.
Yeah, exactly. I know we're like, creators, tell us everything that you think all the time. All the best ideas come from the creators. That's awesome. Oh, and then you have a shout out too from Nicole Meyerson, who said, just wanted to say hi, BA. She worked with you at Google.
Oh, nice. Hi, Nicole.
That's awesome.
Great. Any other questions? I think actually we're probably at time.
You actually have a couple more minutes if you want to keep going. I know that there's been a lot of chatter in the chat, which is really lovely to see. I just wanted to know who you respectively follow as your own influencer.
Oh, that is a great question. So I love following there's different categories of people that I follow. I love following a lot of artists and designers. So, I mentioned the artist Jen Stark before. I love following her because I feel like there's this big intersection right now in culture of art, fashion, music, design. And I feel like a lot gravitates around like these artists. And so the other day I saw on her post, she's like with Sia and all these interesting people. And so I love that. I also follow, one of my favorites right now is Tinks. I know there's like
she's great.
Buzz about, she's great. There was a little bit of like negativity that just recently happened. Somebody like resurfaced her tweets from like 10 years ago. I love her. I think she handled it so well. I think she's real. Like she's one of those influencers where she's talking about everything. She actually has hair loss. And so, I'm putting this out in the universe. I really want to work with Tinks around our hers hair loss product. But she just keeps it real and she's funny. Like I love following funny people, people that are really creating content that, I want to sit and go through all their posts because it's making me laugh. It's entertaining.
I think one thing with her too is she's done just a really good job like managing the business of her career. And I think we're really going to see that. And sorry, it's such a big trend as it is. There are certain people who are just fantastic at creating, and they're good at really gaining an audience. But are they super strategic about what brands they're working with? Are they strategic about what additional lines of revenue or what their passion projects are going to be, or what they're really going to turn their audience onto that they really care about? And I think she's just she has such intention in what she's doing, and she clearly has a really strong team behind her. And that kind of merging of like entrepreneurship with hey, I'm an influencer and I have this huge audience is just fantastic.
And she has a clear point of view. I also really like Jordan Firstman. I think he's also hilarious, clear point of view, clear, like his aesthetic of what he does, the videos that he does, the impressions that he does are so great. He's talented. So is Tinks. Like they're, her like Rich Mom series, like
so good.
Great. And it's relatable. It's so funny. Somebody like that.
Right. Do you want to answer one last question? We have 2 minutes left and Mark Sampson just sent something in. So I'll steal the moderator seat for a second. And he asks if you have any thoughts on sponsoring an artist, music discovery program, or emerging artists.
Yeah, so I love working with emerging artists. And I think, over my career, I've worked with a lot of artists, like both up and coming and established. When I was at Google, one of my last big projects was with John Legend, where we filmed a music video entirely on Pixel 2. I also worked with Solange while I was at Google, and we it was really fun. We got to do a sound bath in the Catskills. Pixel was involved with this as well. It was really unique. A lot of what I did at Lyft was we would often partner with up and coming artists. So one of the artists, like towards the end of when I was there, was Pink Sweats. An up and coming hip hop artist. He's amazing. And so we had our ear to the ground in order to figure out like who's going to be like, the next big thing. With Hims and Hers, I definitely want to integrate that mentality, finding up and coming artists and, really being able to empower them and tell their story and how it relates, to our brand.
Fantastic. Mae, any last words with the 1 minute left, or last question that you want to grill Betty Ann with?
What's your favorite campaign that you've ever done?
Oh.
Wow. Favorite campaign. So I'm gonna talk about, because I love experiential. and how it relates to influencer marketing. So I'm going to talk about an event that I did, which is my favorite. And I actually think some obviously influencers attended it, but it was when I was at Google, and we, again, were talking about Pixel 2, the launch of that. And it was right around Halloween time. And so we created this experience at this old mansion in the Upper West Side in New York, where we created a murder mystery dinner where influencers were given a Pixel phone and they got to go through this murder mystery experience, but they had to use their Pixel phone in order to get to the next room or to, order their drink. And so I loved it because we were really putting the product in the influencers' hands, and it wasn't just like a gifting, like we were making them use it. We were making them experience the magic. And I just take that event and I try to, when we give, even at Hims and Hers, when we give people products, when we're seeding products, I want to make sure that we're giving them the products at like the right moment where they're going to use them. So we launched some skincare, and we want to, influencers are going to Coachella or Stagecoach. Like we want to give them the skincare like before that. And so they'll actually use it. So yeah, I love that Halloween campaign. It's amazing.
We love hearing about that. And I'm so scared to say that we're at time. See how I did that? Halloween. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Oh, Betty Ann Fialkov of Hims and Hers, and Mae Karwowski of Obviously. This was a great session, and I really, really want to thank you for that. And no filters are on. So we appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So I personally really enjoyed that. And I think it's really interesting how influencer went from sizzle and stage to authentic and real. So it's a real pleasure. I got to stop the puns there, to welcome our next group of speakers who I do suspect might keep a little of that influencer topic thread going, if I'm not wrong. Nicole Diamond is Senior Global Director of Innovation and Agile at Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts. She will be moderated by Jessica Hunt, who is the Vice President of West Coast Sales at one of our other favorite friendlies, Influential. Hello, everybody. Take it away.
Guys, super excited. Thank you so much, Nicole. Super excited to be connecting with you. As Evie has mentioned, I help to lead our brand partnerships here, based in Texas. Excited to learn a little bit more about you. Obviously, the topic today is women in marketing and leadership. And so would love to just hear a little bit more about you and your current role at the Four Seasons.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's really exciting to speak with you and everyone else who's listening in. So I have the privilege of owning and leading an amazing team across the entire commercial global operations on innovation at Four Seasons. So really looking at how can we achieve our vision and mission as a team, and really think about how do we work and how do we innovate on our technology, our people, our processes, and to really be that most guest-centric, digitally driven luxury organization.
That is awesome. So you cross multiple teams being as innovation. So would love to hear a little bit more as a leader, and especially specifically a woman leader. You are always having to develop your skills, right? Your skills, your abilities. The reason why you're in the role that you are is because you've had to continuously grow. And so would love to hear a little bit more about some of the things that you've been doing to kind of grow your skills and abilities this first half of 2022.
That's a fantastic question. And you know what, it's actually really interesting, because one of the things that I'm looking to do, especially around the agile space, is not only build my skills and capabilities, but build those of my team and across the commercial team as well. And I'd say one of the things that we're most focused on right now, and this is for myself as well as for the team, is on focus. So how do you focus? How do you, I think that is a really big thing in today's environment, where we're bombarded by so many things that we want to do, so many companies we want to work with. so many opportunities. And how do you focus and really start small to build that momentum and to get the ball rolling? And I think that that's been a key area for our team and for myself as well of, how do you take these big meaty projects and these aspirations that we all have and really start to narrow it down and drill down into, what can you do today? And what is the building block and the momentum that you can build to get to where you want to go?
That's so great. I feel like in my life, focus is always a thing, right? Like you have all of these different projects, these different objectives, goals. And so kind of breaking things down, like thinking of the overarching goals and then breaking it down and focusing on one thing at a time. I love that. I guess kind of want to talk a little bit more about being a female, right? It's the topic today as women in marketing. And so as a female leader, I know personally I've experienced barriers. And so just kind of curious on, have you had any significant barriers as you've been coming up in your career? And then how have you confronted any of those gender related things to kind of overcome that to be in the position where you are today?
I think that's a fantastic question. And I think I would assume that, everyone faces these, right? Everyone faces these barriers and these transition points within your career. And one of the key moments that I think about is a senior executive once saying to me that I had pointy elbows. And I wasn't quite sure how to take that. And, especially as a female, would they say that to a male counterpart? And it wasn't in my current organization. It was in a previous one. And really, I think one of the biggest things we can do is kind of leaning in to our teams and to our people and developing their strengths and looking at, okay, well, what does that really mean? And that, okay, well, that means you're a driver and you want to get things done. Yeah. Amazing. Now, how do we help channel that? And I think that that's, to me, as we support our team members and as we support our teams and as we give messages, it was a female leader who said that to me. And would she have said that to a male counterpart? I don't believe so. And I think that, one of the key things is truly about being authentic. And I think, where there's a barrier, where there's one window closes, a door typically opens. And it's about truly leveraging yourself and believing in yourself and your capabilities, which is usually what opens up the next door. And I think, definitely throughout my career, there's been barriers. I think whether that's when you leave and you go on mat leave and what is that experience like coming back into an organization? And I've been very lucky that, my previous, all my organizations have been supportive in the past, but I think there's always going to be those barriers, and it's about how do you navigate them and knowing that, the role in which you can create roles for yourself and create opportunities for yourself.
I love that, the pointy elbows. I also love the fact that you said being authentic and, no matter what, if there's a barrier, you can always jump over it, right? And so you are a prime example of being able to navigate those barriers and leaning in on teams. So I love that response as well. I guess kind of staying on the career path and just learning a little bit more about you as a leader in marketing as well. What are some of the patterns that you've noticed over the years about women at work and things that we should be doing to advance our careers? Because we talk about like barriers and challenges, but are there things as women that we should be doing more to set ourselves up for leadership positions such as yourself?
Definitely. I think one of the first things that, early on in my career that I learned was the importance of mentorship and sponsorship. And that is something that I would highly recommend to anybody at any stage in your career, is really looking for those mentors, those coaches, and those sponsors. And they're actually all three different roles. And being clear on what are your expectations of others as you go through those, and find those people who are going to be your advocates, those people who are going to be the ones who are standing up in the room when people are having those conversations about performance and can speak to your performance and can speak to, you as a person and what you're trying to drive. And it's having those cheerleaders becomes so important within any organization, whether it's small or large. I started my career in the agency world back, over 15 years ago. now, then went into management consulting and telecommunications and now in hospitality. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It truly is about how are you working with the people around you, and how are you really getting the support and the building the connections with those senior leaders and people in different departments across your organization that can help really steer you and not only people within your organization, but people outside of your organization as well. So looking at, for people that you admire that can be thought leaders and really good coaches and sounding boards for things that you're trying to achieve. And you can learn from their experience.
So do you feel like you put yourself, was it just like kind of an organic thing where, hey, you're in a certain team and you see it's your manager, or did you go and seek out people who were successful mentors, whether it's men and women, to get those mentors, coaches, and then you were able to connect with them throughout your career?
I have tried everything.
I'm trying to selfishly get some advice as well. It's one of the hardest things.
Yeah, it is. And it's hard to ask, right? I've tried multiple different ways. And I think sometimes it depends on that person, because sometimes people feel bad saying no, or they feel bad defining it. And so I've openly asked, 2 levels up and said, I love the way you lead. Could you be my mentor? And you usually get a yes. I think people are really, I think sometimes there's that fear, especially as you're more junior in your career of asking. And I'd say to not be afraid to ask, because people are there. People want to support you. People want to build up, people at all levels within the team. And I think that it's such an honor to be asked, right? To be somebody's mentor. I'd say, from a mentorship perspective, whether it's internal or external, that definitely is like an asking relationship and really defining what is it that you want to get out of that mentor relationship. So what I learned throughout my career has really been about defining what are your outcomes that you're looking to achieve and being very clear about what your expectations are. Yeah. And then working through those. So always having an agenda when you're going in, or having a situation that you want to discuss and get their perspective on. The same, I think, would be from a coaching perspective too. I think organizations now more so than ever beforehand are leaning into executive coaches and leaning into how to support the team with building up your management experience and your leadership capabilities. And so clearly defining what are the things that you need to work on and having an agenda and building the plan to then do that. And I'd say the third area, which is sponsorship, is actually probably the hardest, because that is the most organic, and that is truly developed through proving yourself and relationships that you build, and they, those people become your sponsors. But that's oftentimes the hardest, for at least I've experienced, is the hardest one to really start to build, because it takes time. Yeah. And it takes, that authenticity and really developing those relationships to start building up those sponsors.
I love that. Mentorship, coaching, and sponsorship, and seeking those out, putting yourselves in positions and never being afraid to ask. I think that's sound advice for any of us to follow. Awesome. I guess kind of we'll just kind of continue again more on the topic of women and in their careers. So how should women support other women in their organizations? I feel like, and I feel like I'm in a great position right now where I'm at an organization of women who do support each other, but I've also seen kind of the opposite, right? Like whether if you are a minority and there's only a few of you and you're kind of doing your own thing, like, so how do you encourage your team, and how do you in general for women to kind of support other women as they're trying to climb their career ladders as well?
That's a great question. I think every organization does it differently. So in other organizations I've been in, there's been women's groups that I've been part of where you have, these women at different levels who are coming together to really learn from one another. And we had awards where you were celebrating, women with different backgrounds and at different levels for the things that they were achieving. I've been in organizations where there's been coaching opportunities where there's almost like a matchmaking, where you matchmake with different levels and different women in the organization to learn from one another. But I truly believe that whether it's, a big corporate initiative or something that you do, yourself, it's really about it's about building those connections, right? It's about really looking to see how you can, I think we've all been in the same situation. Like we've all kind of been through, we all face similar barriers. We all face similar constraints, and it's about how do you connect with one another on those things. And typically what I find is you're not alone. Yeah. And I think that message is so strong and so powerful that, in the power of connection, you realize that when you're feeling a certain way, you're actually not alone in feeling that. And it's easier to navigate when you feel like you're not alone. Yeah. And so it truly is about building, I think across, and then also, to the second part of your question around how do you support people on your team and support people, it's about really developing everyone and looking at, where I'd say a part of it is approaching everyone really as an individual of what are they looking to drive and develop, and really leaning into that within your team. I've been very lucky to have led many unbelievable women in my career. And they're doing amazing things now, really around the world. And it's always so special to keep in touch and to see how you are having this impact on people and helping them grow and develop and achieve the things that they're looking to achieve in their careers and in their lives.
I love the idea of kind of organized women's groups celebrating women. I think that's amazing. As well as I agree, kind of leaning in, we're going through similar things, whether it's balancing being a mother and, being a career woman, or just balancing the challenges of, depending on what industry you are. I mean, if you're in a male dominant industry or company, but really being able to just support each other and having that allyship, I think is super important as well. So amazing advice there. Yeah. I guess next question, kind of same vein, next generation of female marketers, right? I have a lot of friends where they're either it's their sisters or siblings or cousins or whatever are graduating, wanting to kind of get into the marketing field. We have Gen Zs, we have people, really looking to, whether it's influencer marketing, kind of whatever. What is kind of your advice as a leader for the next generation of women trying to enter into the marketplace? And do you think that they're going to have it a lot easier than you did when you were kind of coming through?
So my core belief is I think that they will, which is exciting, right? Like if I was reflecting the other day when I did my MBA, it was now I was realizing how long ago it was. In my class there was 24% women, and I was surrounded by such a male dominated class, and I think that. In talking to, I'm currently working with an MBA group right now and in innovation, and they were saying that their current split is 50-50.
That is awesome.
Right? Like that is
awesome.
So I graduated in 2010 from my MBA, and to see in 12 years, you now have the significant shift in terms of the percentage of people who are, and the equality and the dynamics that's changing. And I think that to me is really exciting. So I think that it does change because of that. I'd say that the biggest thing is to be your authentic self, to ask, to put up your hand and don't be afraid to ask, and to realize that other people have been there before and they're looking to support you and help. They're looking to be there. And, kind of getting back to, what we were talking about beforehand, I think, it's looking where you've been in, you've gone through certain experiences, where can you lean in and help other people who are now going through those experiences? So whether it's, you've been on mat leave before, and now there's a new cohort of people who are going on mat leave, you can share about your experience and how do you help set them up for success in coming back, and or whether that be going into managerial positions for the first time, and what does it mean to manage people who were previously your peers, and how do you do, and I think that, and I don't want to generalize, but sometimes oftentimes women have a different strengths than men in terms of how they manage up, how they manage across, and how they manage down. And it's about sharing how do you use that to the ultimate potential? How do you drive that collaboration? How do you really, utilize your strengths as a unique individual and do that with in the most effective way?
That is, I love to hear the shift that you were saying. I mean, I've seen it just in personally of like when I first started working with a company that was 90% women to working at a kind of a 50-50 company in terms of women to males now. And just to hear that you're seeing that as well with that next generation being that split. I love that kind of as well. Awesome. So I'm going to kind of shift a little bit and I want to talk about travel because I mean, we know travel is back. It is back. Flights are expensive. Hotels are getting booked up. And so you as part of the innovation team, and as every industry we know was really hit when it came to COVID, being COVID related. And so I want to understand a little bit more, and it's kind of a general question as well, how has your team had to be agile and shift during COVID? And kind of what are some of the things that you guys are doing differently than you were doing before?
That's a great question. So yes, definitely, hospitality was significantly impacted during COVID. I think one of the biggest opportunities that gave us was really the ability to kind of lean into areas that maybe we hadn't taken the time to do beforehand and really look at how do we innovate? How do we improve the guest experience in these places? And how do we really transform parts of our organization and build in new capabilities that we otherwise wouldn't have done? And I think that's been really exciting and energizing for the team as we're now, on this end of things a couple of years later around, how do we truly continue to enhance the guest experience? And what are the shifts in the guest experience? What are how are the demographics changing? Mm-hmm. And I think that, to your question before about, people coming in the work environment, I think that's consistent across, our guests as well. Our guests are changing and the people who are looking for luxury travel are changing. And how do we continue to adapt to meet their needs and to be, very focused on what are they looking for in their travel experiences? What matters to them? And really continue to innovate ourselves to help achieve those things. And whether that be, with a few years ago, we launched our chat feature, which is, I'm not sure if you used it, but it's an incredible, feature that enables you to, through your phone, to be able to connect with the people at the hotel. So when you're staying on property, you have this one-to-one connection. And it's about how do you utilize technology to enable that human connection is to me what's so fascinating.
I love that, focusing on guest experiences and kind of making that personal connection. I have been to a couple of Four Seasons. My favorite one is the one in Maui. That feature was not available when we went, but amazing to hear that now. I'm curious, you're mentioning demographics shifting, or maybe, trying to figure out what the new demographic is in this new post-COVID world. Have you seen that your marketing, from a marketing standpoint, are you guys are you doing anything differently? Or are you more similar to what you said earlier? Like, are you zeroing in and focusing on some of the things that you were doing before that were working? I know here at Influential, we've seen super massive growth in terms of influencer marketing across all verticals, specifically in travel. And so curious on, what some of your key marketing channels that you guys have been using, and if influencer is a part of the mix as well.
So influencer is definitely a part of the mix. And I would definitely say, stay tuned. I do, yes, like we are leaning in and focusing on certain areas, but we're also evolving as a brand and looking at, how do we really drive, that connection and that relationship that you have with one another. And I think that to me is really exciting is, as a brand, we're really about the love for our guests and how does that come through across the entire guest experience.
Awesome. I guess, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in the travel industry? And I know we're kind of coming up on time and I want to make sure we don't have questions as well, but I would love to hear about some of the trends that you feel like it can kind of be either trends that weren't there before, right? Travel trends that weren't there before that you see are sticking around, or just trends in general that you're seeing coming into this new travel season.
That's a great question. I'd say it's interesting because I think some of the key trends, I don't know if they've changed, but I think that they've maybe accelerated. But there's, the trend of personalization, and how are you driving personalization is a really interesting one, especially with the changing cookies and all of the different legal sort of requirements globally. I think that the notion of personalization has been something we've been talking about for the last decade, but the nature in which how that gets really built out, and then also what people expect continues to change. And I think that that's a fascinating area. I think, another one of the key trends that I've seen is really around, how to build like the connections with people, and what does that look like, that the notion of connection, and I think the third one is experiences. People are looking to experience things. People are looking to see what's out there, to see, I think that there's a reason why influencer marketing has really taken off in the way that it has, because people are looking for entertainment. They're looking for those things. And so really about how does that come to life? And of course, I think, looking at certain markets enables you to kind of see what's coming. And so back in 2019, early on, we were looking at China and saying, what's going on in China? What are some of the key trends that we're seeing there? And how is that going to influence the rest of the world in some of the things that were going to become, commonplace? And I think, if you look at that environment, back 3-4 years ago, it was very much about using your mobile device to scan QR codes. We weren't doing that in North America 3 years ago, but now it's commonplace, right? You go to a restaurant, most of the time you don't even get a menu anymore. Right?
I didn't even know how to use QR codes until COVID. I mean, shameless. I mean, I did, but I agree. It wasn't commonplace, and to see those trends, and I completely agree. Keeping our pulse on China and what's going on there, because it typically will end up coming here, whether it's right away or a couple of years later. Completely agree with you.
Things like live shopping is another one. I think that there's a whole host of different ways in which we're interacting with one another that's shifted based on COVID, and there's been an acceleration in terms of adoption, and so it's always interesting to watch. But I think by and large, people are looking for an automated, contextual, personalized experience, and it's just about the how.
That's awesome. I guess. Let's talk about, how your team, and it kind of goes on to the same vein about adjusting your marketing strategies. So, because you're talking about personalization, you're talking about contextually doing things. Is there anything that you guys are doing this summer, this upcoming season, that's really kind of adjusting some of those marketing strategies that you guys were doing, whether it's earlier on the year, pre-COVID? Just kind of curious a little bit about your marketing mix right now as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're looking at is exploring new channels from a marketing perspective, and seeing how we continue to be authentic to the brand and with our guests, and how does that come to life?
Awesome. Perfect. So I'm going to shift back to kind of women in leadership. I definitely wanted to hear, just curious, just because of the travel industry and how it's that, but would love to understand a little bit more about what you are getting excited about, whether it's in your team, as in your leadership role. Would love to kind of hear a little bit about what's going on with your team and some of the exciting things that you might be working on as well.
Yeah. So, some of the exciting things that we're working on in our team is is really looking at, so one is how do we bring agility into the commercial team? So how do we start to really focus and be able to really drive to just being closer to our guests. I think that to us is just so important, is, the guest is really at our core. And so how do we drive our experiences to deliver on everyone's expectations? And for, the whether it's the digital experience or the in-person experience to be as exceptional as one would expect from Four Seasons. I'd say another area is really looking at, and then how do we take that and then how do you optimize that across the entire guest journey? So lots of exciting things that we're working through and looking at how do we continue to evolve as a company.
And that's amazing. And are there any other, I guess another question kind of, how are you guys keeping your pulse on, we understand from a travel perspective, hotels are always going to be core. Kind of what are you guys doing in terms of the Airbnb and kind of those people of the world? How are you guys keeping your pulse on the competition as well? And how are you guys adjusting that, your marketing goals towards that? Or are you guys just kind of staying focused on the core of luxury and personalization? Just kind of curious on some of the key competitors, or it doesn't even necessarily need to be competitors, but what are some of the things that you guys are watching right now in the marketplace?
Yeah, I'd say, I'd say everything, right? I think when you think about, a product such as ourselves, a product that is a luxury, a luxury hospitality experience, or even a retail experience, it's all about the experience. And I think regardless of industry, it's what are people's expectations of experiences. And so I think it's not only looking at the Airbnbs, and it's not only looking at the traditional competitors, but it's also looking externally at, what are our luxury organizations doing? What are people's expectations when in those engagements and in those shopping experiences? And how do you bring that to life across any part of the experience? So, when you're staying with us, when you're on our website, if you're purchasing our mattress or our sheets on shop.fourseasons.com versus if you're, purchasing a hotel room and a stay or a residence or a retreat on our website. And regardless of what you're doing, or if you live with us at Four Seasons, how do you really being authentic to the brand and really making sure that we're being consistent.
That's awesome. And then I'm going to make sure. Okay, I don't know if we have, because I don't know if we have any questions. I definitely still have more questions. I guess a couple of things that I'm kind of curious about is, Four Seasons in terms of growth strategy, whether it's marketing or just the resorts. Is there any kind of plans for growth in terms of Four Seasons going into the back half of 2022?
We are always, adding new properties to our portfolio. We recently had some really exciting announcements of new properties that are opening, and quite a few that opened last year. So definitely, continue growing, and it's been really exciting seeing the brand continue to grow over the last few years.
That is awesome. And then I think we're almost at time. Oh, there.
You actually have 3 or 4 more minutes.
Okay.
Do you have another question, Jessica? Because the world is your oyster right now.
I mean, I have tons of questions.
Go for it.
I'm like, do I get to ask personal questions? No.
You can ask me anything.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess just from obviously, like, you made really good delineation. There's the luxury traveler that's going for vacation. You guys also have residences, and then you also kind of have, the spa, the golfers and things like that. Because I know, just from personal experience, are you guys kind of what are some of the core, when it comes to marketing for whether it's, most people think of you guys as, from a traveling standpoint, how are you guys really, what's some of your key marketing channels to drive marketing acquisition for things like your residences or for your spa and your resorts and some of those memberships that sometimes people don't think about unless you're really close to a Four Seasons, for like the local consumer that's within a Four Seasons market?
That's a great question. I actually would say that in addition, I think one of the most special things, with a lot of really special things about the brand is also our food and beverage. So we have, I believe it's the most Michelin stars compared to any other hotel brand. And it really, I think within our markets, they're destinations in and of themselves. And it truly is about creating that unique experience for, you're right, not only our guests, but our residents, or like the people who are local in the community. And how are we really being able to invite people into the brand in different ways? And so, definitely, as you spoke about, our food and beverage is one area, the spa is another area that's really becomes a local facet within different communities that our hotels are in. And then the third area really is now the ability to bring Four Seasons home with you with our retail. And so with shop.fourseasons.com, you're able to buy our mattresses, you're able to buy the sheets, you're able to buy and bring home pieces of Four Seasons, which is really exciting, right? So it's a different entry point into the brand. And then, of course, I think we also have our other products like our jet and our jet experience, where you can book to travel to multiple Four Seasons destinations and really have that, end-to-end really unbelievable experience where we've curated an entire travel itinerary to you. So it really is across the board as we think about, what are our guests looking for and what our community is looking for.
That is amazing. And I did not know about the shopping, which is kind of dangerous.
As I said, we're always innovating. It's I highly recommend it.
And I mean, I'm based in Texas, and just from personal experience, my brother was a golfer, and we spent a lot of our Mother's Days because he was a member of the golf at Las Colinas. So we did a lot of, I can attest to the restaurants, right? So a lot of Mother's Day brunches and some of the events that they would do around Easter and things like that. So that is awesome as well.
I like the idea that I can have a Four Seasons mattress at home. And Stephanie Gallo from EJ Gallo was just talking about how we're consuming a lot of wine at home. I think it's a perfect combo.
It is.
Mattress, sheets, wine.
Yeah.
Put on your Four Seasons robe.
Right.
Put on your slippers, have your wine, and then exactly bring a little bit of luxury home with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more, Jessica?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I guess going personal for you, going into the back half of the year, is there anything that you are most excited about for your team going into the back half of the year as well, or even summer, because this is peak season for you guys as well. So just kind of personally for you.
So one of the things I'm most excited about actually is building my team. So I'm currently in the hiring process and building my team, and it's always so much fun. I think it's such a fun experience where you're building this team, you're building this this engine that really is gonna go and achieve such amazing things. So I think for me, that's what I'm most excited about is building the team, bringing in some incredible people, and then focusing on a few really exciting initiatives that hopefully you'll be seeing shortly.
I'm excited. I'm going to be watching you in the background, and really, I mean, it was such a great conversation just around, your role as a leader, kind of some of the things and advices to women that are trying to be leaders as well. And then learning about Four Seasons and what your marketing initiatives and how you guys have kind of are doing in this post-COVID world. So I really appreciate your time, and it was fabulous getting to know you today.
Getting to know you as well. Thank you so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure.
And I have to second that or third it. It was just terrific. This has been so inspiring for all of the women in brand marketing that we've been hearing from, and to see all of the comments in the chats and engagement happening there. And Nicole, you prove once again that you are the definition of innovation and agility. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Jessica, next up is one of your teammates. So I know it's all influential all the time for these two sessions. So with that, I will point out that one of the first things that Nicole Diamond in our last session talked about was that growing as women in marketing means also taking advantage of memberships and sponsorships. I want to take a moment to offer a reminder that Brand Innovators is actually the largest professional network of its kind with our innovative approach to organic relationships. So if you're a brand side marketer and you want to be featured, or you're interested in partnerships with us, hit us up. It is a great community. So speaking of community, can you think of any nonprofit who does that better than United Way? Please help me welcome our next two speakers. Renee Beck is Vice President of Marketing, and there's that word again, innovation, for United Way of Central Maryland. And she will be moderated by another friend of ours from Influential, Lataria Coy. And how perfect is this? She heads up ethical media at Influential. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Evie. Thank you so much. I have to say that I am obsessed with your mic.
Oh,
yes.
No.
It's amazing.
Thank you. It's a Shure MV7 and it's going to come in handy when Brand Innovators, a little plug. Here's my other mic. Which mic are you talking about? Oh, when Brand Innovators launches its new podcast. So stay tuned for that. You heard it here first.
Love it.
Can't wait to hear about it. Thank you.
Have a good conversation now on your own mics.
Thank you very much. Sadly, I am in a really, really loud apartment, so I do not have such a great audio experience, but I'm sure we'll have a fantastic conversation today. I am super excited that I get to talk to you, Renee. Renee Beck is a senior strategic marketing professional who's worked at agencies, corporations, startups, and now she's at a nonprofit. She's also a hiker, a runner, a traveler. We'll get to that in a bit, but welcome, Renee, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love talking all things marketing and I love empowering women. So this feels like a fantastic conversation to be having today.
Awesome. Yes, perfect. And I love that it's no longer Women's History Month, but we are still talking about women in marketing because it is an evergreen topic for sure.
As we should be.
Yes. Yes. So Renee, your first actual nonprofit role is the one that you're currently in, which is the Vice President of Marketing and Innovation at United Way of Central Maryland. Tell me about that journey, because not many of us have made the jump from corporate America to startup to nonprofit.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. It's one of the things I share most when I talk to people about my career, because when people talk about pivoting, I have pivoted so much in the types of organizations that I work with. So I've been doing PR and marketing, communications my whole career, but I started at an agency. I then moved into a large corporation, then had an opportunity to join a local startup. I'm based in Baltimore City in Central Maryland. I had an opportunity to join a local small growing startup and moved to another startup. And then I was actually doing a little consulting too. So I've done some consulting myself and had an opportunity with United Way of Central Maryland. This opportunity came to me to lead up this team of amazing marketers and bring some of that for-profit knowledge that I had and really think about things a little bit differently in a nonprofit space. And it's been really fun. I've been here 3.5 years. I love it. I have just the most amazing team. And I feel like we've been doing some pretty cool things in the nonprofit space. And I get the privilege of being part of the larger United Way Worldwide organization, which is just a fantastic network to be a part of too.
That's awesome. It's awesome because as a marketers, you don't always get to work on things that you feel good about. So it's so great that you get to do that every single day.
Yeah.
And so about that transition, like what type of skills do you take with your to your new role from corporate America? Like what's something, because I'm sure they hired you because of your sort of business acumen and experience. So what is different? What special sauce do you bring?
It was interesting when this job came to me. Someone who introduced me to the organization was actually someone who I'd worked with in the startup environment. Fantastic, startup leader in the Baltimore area. And what she said to me when she sent this job to me was, "I know this isn't your normal wheelhouse." And that was, she said right up front, "I know this isn't your normal, something you would probably normally be interested in. But I think what you can do is bring your previous experience to the organization and just help them continue to think digitally first, innovatively, really be thinking forward like that." So that's what I try to bring. I try to think about things with a little bit more of a business mindset. I think about people as, our donors, they're our customers, they're people, but then we also have customers in the people who we are helping. So we have two different audiences who we're talking to. And I think about them in that way, like we talk about audience segmentation and thinking about those things. We do, when you talk about email marketing, we do A/B testing. When we talk about social media, we're looking at the analytics. Like there are a lot of those things that a lot of nonprofits are doing now, but might not always be the first thought. But one thing that I think has been different is I focus a lot more on just brand awareness now than I did before. I think before it was always so much about just the bottom line. A lot of what I worked in was e-com, and so it was sales.
The sale. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And of course, now sales for us are donations, which is huge, and we need them, and you should all donate. It's a fantastic organization. But so much of it is just letting people know about the work that we do and really making sure we have that brand awareness. And I have a strong background in PR, so it plays really well into the work that I've loved doing my whole career too.
Perfect. I love it. I guess because there are so many places where you can give, like donate your money and time. And so how do you make United Way stand out? And it's interesting because I never thought as innovation as something that would lend itself to like corporate giving and, donor and personal giving, but I could see how it could be super important. So I feel like you probably honed a lot of your skills at the startup.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about that because I feel like that is a unique experience. Not all of us get a chance to work for a startup. Unfortunately, at least the way they portrayed on TV, there's a lot of gender dynamics at play at startups. And so I'm curious about your experience there and if that were true for you. How long ago was that? I guess I'm curious as to how long ago that was, because I'm wondering, has there been any evolution in that space from your thoughts?
That's a great question. So my first startup, I started there 8 years ago. So, a little while ago. There definitely were some moments where, as a female in a startup, I felt like maybe I wasn't treated the same way. Maybe I wasn't compensated the same way. I think it was more of a lack of education too. I just didn't know the startup world. And no one took the time to kind of educate me and help me understand what it meant to get stock options, what it would mean. The startup that I was at was ultimately acquired by a public company. So those options that I had became real. And I didn't know what it meant when I got that offer, all of those kind of things, I just didn't understand. It wasn't part of my world before. I've been incredibly fortunate to have a team. It's my team of mentors. Many of whom are from my first startup because we came up in it together, and they're all women because we were in a very similar situation. We were all trying to find our way and figure out as women in this field, in this industry, how can we stand out? How can we show our worth? How can we make sure that everyone sees the work that we're doing and appreciates it? So had a fantastic group. I really say it's peer mentors. I've had some mentors who are
I
older
love
than
it.
me. Yeah,
Yes, I love it.
everyone thinks of mentorship as people who are much older than you or much more experienced
Mhm.
than you. I have just this phenomenal team of peer mentors, and they are. I was just texting with them yesterday. They're my group of women who I text and say, I have a marketing question, or I'm trying to hire, and this is what I'm looking for. They're just people who I bounce ideas off of all the time, and test out new things on them. But we really came up in this startup environment together. None of us had worked in startups before, and we just rallied around each other and figured it out. And then one of the women who was my boss at that startup, she Heather Fields, if you're watching, she taught me strength finders. If you've ever taken, the different types of tests, different types of personality tests, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Strength finders is this amazing one that helps you hone in on your strengths, because she told me, stop focusing on your weaknesses. Don't worry about what you can't do. Find someone who can help you do those. If you're not good at math and you can't figure out the data, it's okay. There's a whole data team. She taught me really to focus on my strengths. And I think that mentorship that I really learned from a startup, like that education was just phenomenal. You were doing everything as it happened, and there was no time to really slow down. You were in action.
That's such fantastic advice. Just, focus on your strengths. And I think I'm like self-deprecating by nature. Okay, I'm recovering self-deprecating person. Because I too had someone to say, stop doing that. Mm-hmm. People see something else other than what you see, and just like hone in on your strengths. And it's such good advice, and I just wish more, especially young professional women, can get that earlier in their career, because I feel like it's almost like the opposite of how we grow up as girls. You almost like you want to fit in. I have a son who's in 5th grade now. He's a boy. But still, he feels the pressure to be like everyone else. And for girls, that's especially true. And just, showing girls, women, young professional women, especially, to like take up space, to be bold, to lean into their strengths is such great advice. And it takes some undoing, it takes multiple times for you to hear that, for you to actually believe that and make a plan.
Yeah. And that's what I tell women now. I've taken that with me, and I try to tell women now, focus on what you're good at. There are people, figure out the story that you need to tell. Again, for me, it's math. I'm not good at math. I did not do well in math. And I would say that when I was trying to work on analytics and things like that and reporting. And that's what she said. She said, stop saying that you're not good at math. Just stop. Figure out what's the story that you want to tell with the data, and then go to the data team, talk them through it. And so I became great friends with the data team, and I learned so much. I learned so much from them, things that I didn't even know I could be telling stories about. They taught me. So it also really helped me, I think, reach out to other people and remind myself that I don't have to know everything, and I don't have to do everything.
100%.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and just also like your strength is storytelling, which to the mathematician is something that they could never do, right? Like everyone has their superpower. So just find what it is. So mentors. So you mentioned peer mentorships, which I love so much. And I think my COO has like a personal board of directors. I don't know that I've ever thought about it that way, but I definitely have a group of women that I started out with at the New York Times many moons ago. I think there's something about being a certain age in like kind of a pressure cooker type situation that bonds you. Not a bad pressure cooker, just a pressure cooker. And it's so great because it's similar in that everyone is doing different things now, but I know 100% that I can lean on them and reach out to them and get specific advice on work related stuff, on personal related stuff. And it's just fantastic. So more of that for sure. But also mentorships with women who are more advanced in their careers in any one direction. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that, if you're a COO, that your boss has been a COO for 10 years, but maybe it's a strength that you don't have, and someone who's a little bit more senior, but there's value in those relationships as well. And how would you suggest going about finding a mentor?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think for myself, most of my mentors have really been people who I've worked with, but I have also found, being maybe a part of networking groups. I just joined a women's networking group and leadership development group. That's been a fantastic way to meet some potential new mentors. Even just within your own community, like I mentioned, I'm kind of involved in the Baltimore startup community. That's been a space. The person who recommended me for the role that I'm in, she was not a boss of mine or a previous employer of mine, but just someone who I'd worked with in the startup space. And she really became someone who I leaned on to help me make some decisions, help me think through different things. So I think it's maybe finding people who are in a space that you are in, whether that's if you have an interest in marketing, you have an interest in startups, finding someone in that space. And most people, I can't speak for everyone, but most people are pretty open to it. I love talking to people. I did not exactly mentoring, but I did a talk just this past Monday night for some students who are graduating from a local university. And they asked me to come and share some career tips, things like that. And I was joking that I hope they don't find my TikTok and find that I'm just a lurker and I don't actually post. A little embarrassed, but they were fantastic though. And I told them, I said, reach out to me. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. So I think of what would I want from people, how would I want people to approach me and share advice with me. And I try to do the same for people who might look to me in that way, which is always flattering too. I always think if someone's interested in my career in any way, I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, I love it. It's and pay it forward because you want to be, in service, just like someone was in service for you, like your old boss who asked you to focus on your strengths.
Yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit, and maybe this is sort of dovetails to the mentorship discussion, but I'm thinking about equity and pay equity, especially as it relates to women in general. And I'm wondering, do you talk to your peer mentors or other mentors about salary? What's that conversation like? Have you seen any evolvement in the discussion in the past few years, versus when you first started out?
Yeah, absolutely. I have fought very hard for myself to get where I am salary-wise. I was the person who was probably a little annoying early on, and every 6 months or so going to my boss or to someone else and saying, here are all the things I did. And not just I expected, I would bring the research, I would do the salary research, I would look at the data, I would bring the work that I did to show that I should be at that level. And somewhat recently, really feel like I am now and truly feel like I'm compensated for the work that I do and feel really grateful to have gotten to that place. It's a little funny when I realized it's like, oh, okay, I feel good about this.
How did that? I love that so much. I was the exact opposite, unfortunately. How did you start? What was that first conversation like? Or what was the situation when you said to yourself, I need to ask for more money here?
I think if I think back on it very quickly, it was probably right around the time, and this was almost 15 years ago at this point. I mean, we're talking 13, 14 years ago. I thought that I was going to receive a promotion. I had heard through the grapevine that I was going to. And when they were announced, it didn't happen. And that was very frustrating for me because I truly felt like I had earned it. So I think I took that as an opportunity to really try to understand, why was I not getting that promotion? Why was that Why was that pay increase not happening? And really said, I need to advocate for myself. I tell people one of my top pieces of advice is that no one is going to advocate more for you than you. Unfortunately, that's harder for some people than others for a variety of reasons, not even just yourself.
Right.
There are a lot of barriers that are in place for a lot of people. But I just did what I could. Like I said, I started to pull together the numbers. I said, here's what I've done in my work. Here are the actual numbers. Here's the engagement that I can show. Here's the work that have done. And then here are the actual salary comps. I would look at Glassdoor and salary.com and Indeed and all of those and do the research and say, I really feel like this is the level that I should be at. It's very interesting now being on the other side of it and having a team often coming to me and saying the same things. So I see, it's not always your decision too, as a manager. I think that was something that I didn't know early on. It is not always my decision. I wish that sometimes I could do more, but it's not always the decision of the manager. And that was something that I didn't know back then, but I would just kind of be consistent and every, like I said, every 6 months to a year, going and saying, this is my updated presentation, basically.
I love it.
Yeah.
Like clockwork.
Yeah.
So first of all, I love that it started with a setback, because that's fantastic. I think all good leadership moments, right, start with a setback.
Yeah.
And how was it? So the first time, you didn't get the promotion, you felt wrong, so you made your presentation. How was it received the first time?
It's always been received really well. I will say I've never had someone say to me flat out no, or flat out, this just, there have been the reasons of, we can't do this right now. The company is in a certain place. This is not the time for it. But I've never been discouraged, which I think has also really kept me going. There's never been someone who said, you shouldn't have brought this to me, or someone who came to me on the side and said, you really shouldn't have done that. I've never had a boss either who has discouraged me from having those conversations. So I think that being open and transparent about it has been really helpful. And again, I know that's just not comfortable for people, but again, no one's going to advocate more for you than you. No one is going to just say, you know what, let's just give her more money.
Yeah, no, sure. Like a closed mouth never gets fed. And I mean, I wish I would have talked to you like when I was first starting out, but I definitely did just sort of wait for people to give me more money.
Yeah.
Like for a very long time. And in my estimate, it worked out okay. But in retrospect, it probably didn't, And I don't know what it was. I just always felt like they'd be fair and they're gonna compensate me properly. But then again, having no visibility into what other people were making.
Yes.
And I think that's the rub, right? Like, I know there's some legislation in the EU where they're talking about pay transparency. We certainly are far away from adopting that in the United States. But I wonder, how would that have changed my movements if, as a young professional, when knowing that the person sitting in the next cube is making, a third more than me.
Sure. Yeah, I do think those conversations, even if you can't have them with your colleagues, if you have friends who are comfortable. It is funny that we're talking about this. I actually had a friend text me this morning and said she'd had a fantastic first interview this morning, and she was telling me very openly about the salary range that they proposed, and she was so excited about it. I'm texting her Beyonce gifts, like, get your paper, basically. I said, get that bread. Like, yes, please. It just made me really, really excited to know that she was being paid her worth and that she felt comfortable talking to me about it. I think she felt comfortable with me knowing about it, and that I would be honest with her back if I thought that was too low or too high or anything. She kind of said, what do you think? And yes, that is the right amount. Yes, you deserve that. Like, yes, you should be doing that. And there is a little bit of sometimes discomfort in it too. I think when you get to a certain place, you may not have friends who are in that same place. If you are comfortable and happy with the salary that you're making, you may not have friends and colleagues and others who are. So there is a little bit of that awkwardness too at some point when you're like, well, I actually feel pretty content and happy. And you hear a lot of people around you not. And there is a little bit of that hesitation to share sometimes too. I think we're always much more open to share when we're unhappy with where we are. The venting is easier than the celebration.
Yeah, it's true. I could see how it could be a little awkward, like knowing salaries. But sometimes I feel like it's necessary for you to negotiate for yourself. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering like how many people share what their salary is. So for example, like what's the right way to ask for, like, say for someone, if there's a job or that you think is comparable, like maybe it's like HR director or something like that. So different industry, is it appropriate ever to ask someone for their salary just to do some market research, and how uncomfortable is that for the recipient of that? I
don't think there's harm in asking. I think know your audience first. I mean, know what you're asking. If you're asking a friend, understand your friendship and their level of comfort with something like that. If you're asking a colleague or someone else in the industry, I think knowing who you're talking to first. But I think there's no harm in asking. I wish more people talked about money openly and just talked in general about benefits and other things like that. Like just helping people understand what your total compensation actually means. And really, again, empowering people to say, okay, I've done the research. I've looked at things like this is the number that I feel comfortable with. And you might not always get it. And that's then where you have to decide, okay, I asked other people, I did my own research. They're offering me this amount. I always say negotiate. I would never expect someone to not negotiate. And then you have to decide at that point, is this something that you want enough to either take the lower salary that they're offering, or you say no, and that's just not something that I can do. And a lot of that depends, really some of the best advice I ever received. It was so simple. I was deciding what I wanted to do in terms of this role. I'd actually been offered a role at the same time, heading up national PR for a very large corporation that had kind of grown from a startup. And I was just deciding what to do. And she said, you just have to do what is right for you and your family right now. Financially, stability, all of those things, like taking all of those things into consideration, just do. And my family is myself and my husband. I don't have children. She said, what is right for you right now? And it was funny, without that advice, I might have taken the other role. And I don't think that was what was right for me then. But just her saying that simple thing. Yeah. And again, that's that group of those peer mentors, someone just saying those simple things to you and making you kind of check it and say, so again, going back to the salary, I think it might be the right role for you then, and it might not be the salary that you're happy with. And that could be okay. And you can work toward that and setting that expectation early on. I'm so excited about this role. I want to take this. Here's where I'm hoping to be, here's where I'd like to be in a year. Just having those conversations, I think is really important. Or if you get a really high salary offer, but again, you don't feel like it's the right fit, don't take it because of the money, like just because of the money.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like you're not just your job, right? Like all of these things about your life kind of factor into the total comp package and everything else. And I feel like COVID has definitely taught us that we're more, and it's shown companies that we're more than just people that come and sit at a desk and deliver on X, and then they go home into a vacuum and no one ever, they plug in, so like a robot plugs in. But you now, see families in the background, or dogs, or, whatever the situation, even, grandparents or parents that you're taking care of or that happen to be in the space. How do you think COVID has changed things? And now that we're a couple of years away, how do you think, have things reverted back? Are there some things that you want to see more of? I'm just sort of curious about that evolution in your mind?
I've seen a lot more sympathy and empathy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Higher levels of understanding. I had in this position, I had a previous boss left a few months ago, and I got to see her son grow up on Zoom. He was about a year old, I think, when we went into the pandemic, maybe not even quite that old. And I got to watch him until recently when she moved on to another role, and it was amazing. And he knew me, we would say hi and we talk to each other on Zoom. And I think that it just, for your supervisor, it made me just so much more aware of everything else she had going on and just everything else that was happening in her life. And then for my own team, it really, made me, especially those with families and those with young kids, realize like, you're juggling so much right now. I am fortunate enough because I don't have kids. It's just me here. It's my husband is sometimes here, and I have 2 cats that are roaming around, but that's about it. And I think it really opened my eyes to how much other people had going on that we weren't aware of before. Like you said, it was just it was a vacuum before. We came to work, we parked, we went into an office. That was our life there, and we knew people had significant others and children and pets and things, but it just wasn't part of their whole that we knew. And now we're aware of that. And I just see people having, again, fortunate, I don't know if this is just nonprofit or my organization specifically, but I've seen policies change. We changed our policy early on in the pandemic to being able to work remotely 1 day a week to being full-time remote with your supervisor's permission. So even they made that call very early on in 2020 for whenever we did go back to the office, this was something that people could do. So to see people,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, to see those policy changes happen so quickly was really amazing. They also modified like our maternity and paternity leaves, things like that. I think.
How so? Like, talk to me about that.
I won't lie, I don't know the specifics just because.
Okay.
Applied to me.
No, it's fine.
But actually some members of my team were the ones, two mothers on my team were the ones who kind of spearheaded it and took it to the head of the organization. So that was fantastic too. They came to me and they said, do you mind if we kind of take the time to do this? I said, absolutely not. Like, please go, fight for something that you think is important. So that was really cool too, just to see them kind of stand up and fight for something they really believed in. So I don't know the exactly how it changed.
No, that's okay.
It obviously added paid time to policy, and that was huge. And I don't
change them. Sorry, go on, please.
I was just saying, I don't think we had a paternity policy at all, from my understanding, and so that was added, and then the maternity leave was, it built up essentially more than it had been.
It's so important for men to take off time too. And then also, so at my last company, I worked for OMD, a major agency, and they changed a lot of rules, even extended with parental leave to just for parents. So like, for example, you didn't have to be a biological parent. You could be, a gay couple and take off leave, which seems to be a no-brainer, but it just wasn't enshrined in the policy. And I think that's true for many companies, and a lot of companies have made some significant changes, which is so fantastic. And companies seem to be listening to employees more so than they have in the past. And I think in large part because we can actually see, you can see into the lives of your people, and then you just make different choices based on that.
And I think sometimes you show up differently on video, on Zoom. You're willing to be maybe a little more vulnerable than you would be. Than you would have been in person. So I think I saw a lot more of that with my team too, and was able to understand more of what was going on, because you weren't putting on that persona necessarily of employee in the office. You could be a little more open, share a little more. Speaking of maternity and paternity leave, I had 2 women on my team who were on maternity leave at the same time last fall. And as a manager, it was very, very, very hard. But as a manager and a human, I wish they could have taken more time. I mean, honestly, I wish that that was something that could have happened, because to see people come back and to see them kind of, handing off their babies and watch it on video, it was hard for me. So I tried to do everything I could, at least, and say, please ease in slowly, sign off if you need to for a while, do what you need to do, because that was just very raw and real, I think, to see it in more real time. Again, you just wouldn't have seen that in the office. There's a baby somewhere and I see some
right. You see pictures of them, perfectly styled pictures.
Exactly. This is baby's crying and needs something. So go sign off, go take care, come back when you can. And I think it's made, to really go back to your previous question, I just think it's hopefully made everyone just much more sympathetic and empathetic and just flexible. I think is really the thing too, just more flexible. We have lives.
We do. I love that, like the personal sort of growth thoughts and ideas that you have for your team. Are there any professional growths that you would like to see for your team in the near future?
Yes, definitely. So I inherited my whole team at United Way of Central Maryland. They have all been there longer than me, and they're phenomenal. If any of you are watching, we've hired one person on since I started, and are actually, we have a new employee starting in about 3 weeks. And then we have another open position that we're trying to work through exactly what's needed on the team. So
a growing team, amazing.
It's fantastic, but challenging at the same time. It's challenging to be doing all of those HR things. I had, again, the 2 women on maternity leave, had my former boss leave, had my first person on my team leave about a month ago for an amazing opportunity. And it was his time to make that move. But just a lot of changes. And I joke kind of that my life has just been HR for the past 9 months, because I feel like that's been what I've been doing. And I had a really interesting conversation, this women's leadership group that I'm a part of. And it's funny because you mentioned your board of directors. That is literally what they called us, our small, our like core group that we have. They're calling it the board of directors. And some of us were talking last night about the fact that being a manager itself is really a full-time job. Like just being a manager. And then you have the work that you're
work to do. Yes.
I don't get to just manage a team. I also have to do work and come up with ideas and strategize, and attend 100 meetings and all these things. So it's juggling that. So I think for my team, what I'm most excited about, and I've seen this happening, I've seen them just taking on more and more, getting excited about the work, stepping up to take on projects, just really owning it more. And I've seen myself proud of myself for being able to delegate a little bit more. That's always been very hard for me. My mindset has always just been like, I can just do it. And
yes, faster. Yeah.
Right. And I don't have to teach someone. Well, that doesn't help anyone grow, first of all. It also then just buries me in the work, and I never can do anything if I can't, actually delegate some things to other people. So that's been a really good lesson to me. So I think I'm looking forward to the next year of growing our team, really being more, innovation is part of my role. So like, what is the next innovative thing that we do? What else are we building? We've built some amazing kind of virtual experiences, and we built a virtual community of our Central Maryland community, and have done some cool things like that, again, I haven't seen a lot of nonprofits do. So I get very excited about that work and thinking about what's next.
I think there's something about like virtual experiences, Web3, the metaverse, that drives, it's innovative, but it drives empathy. Because it's like you're in an experience versus reading about it or watching it. Like it's not 2-dimensional. So I love that for United Way. I guess I just wanted to ask a question about your customers. You have customers of folks that you help, but then you also have like your donors and philanthropists. And I'm wondering the role of women in both groups. Can you talk a little bit about like both those customer bases?
Sure. So, we do see on the side of those who we help, United Way really focuses on a group that we call ALICE, which is asset limited, income constrained, employed. So it is essentially people who are working hard, often working 2 or 3 jobs, but are really struggling to make ends meet. So they, they're not necessarily unhoused. They are working, they have income coming in, but are still struggling to buy groceries every month or pay that rent or do anything like that. So, and it is a very large population. And you do see women, particularly during the pandemic, we hear a lot of stories from women who have been hit the most. We know that a lot of industries that were really hit during COVID are female dominant, in terms of employment, hospitality, thinking about cashiers, people who are working in a lot of the service. Healthcare, absolutely, healthcare. So a lot of people who are working in these service fields are really on that front line and are being incredibly impacted. And again, they're working 2, 3 jobs to try to get by. So that and childcare, my goodness, like everything that is happening, everything that's happening with childcare, it's exorbitantly expensive. They were, a lot of these women were left without childcare during the pandemic. It just has become this true crisis. And United Way of Central Maryland is actually doing a lot of work around that right now. We're launching some initiatives around childcare and really doing what we can there, because we've again seen it firsthand from those who we help. So that's one thing that we're working on. And then from the donor side, absolutely, women are powerhouse philanthropists, and it is amazing to see it. We were fortunate to receive a very large gift, the largest in our history, from Mackenzie Scott. She is—
That's amazing.
Yeah, has dedicated half. She signed the giving pledge to give half of her net worth away in her lifetime. And we were one of the first organizations that was a recipient of that back in December 2020. Just the gift from the sky. I mean, it was unbelievable. We didn't know what was happening. No one knew what was happening. Her team vetted all of the organizations themselves and made these gifts. And just the impact that she was able to make in such a short amount of time was amazing. And she's continued to do it. And she's continued to say, this is not about me, which I think, you often see with women is, I don't need the credit. I don't need the accolades. She's very under the radar about it. I mean, when she announced it, she posted it on Medium. Like, that was the announcement.
I think that's a beautiful high note to unfortunately have to leave it on. Women supporting other women, and fabulous organizations like the United Way supporting all of us. And so I just have to pop in, unfortunately, and say thank you to both of you.
Thank you.
That was
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Just terrific. Yay. Hopefully you are inspired, but there's more coming to you in the way of inspiration, because next on our stage, we're being joined by Kamal Bandal, who is the Vice President of Global Consumer and Brand Marketing for Align Technologies. Hopefully Kamal will set us straight about marketing Invisalign and more. And Kamal will be moderated by Miles Rutter, who is the Director of Client Development at, how perfect is this, the Branded Entertainment Network, or BEN. Do you call it BEN or BEN?
We call it BEN.
BEN. Okay, good. That's my grandfather's name, so I already like you. And I don't want to steal your thunder, Miles. And I know that this is all about Kamal today, but I'm fascinated by how BEN uses AI to help ID good content for product placement. But I will let you grill our guest of honor instead about all things Align. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
I was
you.
going to say, I'm fascinated about that too. So maybe we should start there.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we can start with the intros. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for joining. My name is Miles Rutter. I'm the Director of Client Development here at Ben. Ben Group stands for Branded Entertainment Network. As mentioned, we help brands integrate and we leverage our AI technology to help identify which upcoming shows, whether they be streaming, TV, film, music video, music artists, or even influencers, based on their audiences and people who will be able to help brands reach them through that by being part of the entertainment. And then, of course, I will hand it over to Kamal Badal, who is going to give a little background on herself as well.
Hi, everybody. So good to be here today with the Brand Innovators community and Miles with you as well. I am Kamal Badal, as Miles shared, and I lead the global consumer and brand marketing team here at Align Technology. I think most people in the audience may know Align better as the makers of Invisalign clear aligners. We are very much a household name with that brand. And I'm super excited to be here today. I think the Brand Innovators community is definitely a community. So I look forward to an engaging discussion with you, Miles.
Likewise. Yeah, no. And as we were speaking this morning, just thrilled, and thank you to Brand Innovators for hosting once again another fantastic panel with super interesting people. I will say Kamal definitely deserves to be on this panel. I was talking to her and she's on the West Coast and she's been up since 5:30 her time this morning. So I know that she's really out there doing the work. But yeah, let's get started. I think, people watching would probably just love to know, how did you get to where you are today?
Such a big question. So a couple of thoughts, right? I would say, how did I get to where I am today? I very much stand on the shoulders of so many coaches, leaders, and mentors who shaped my career journey. A little bit about my career journey. I actually started in hardware, Miles, and my hardware days were very much focused at Intel. And what a time it was to be at Intel when we were just first introducing products like the Celeron processor. And from there, I went into software and really made the cycles in the software space, both as a product manager and as a product marketing manager. So really got some good experiences there, I would say, just in terms of understanding how to build products, understanding user behavior, customer needs, and putting myself in the shoes of the customer to ensure that we were creating both products and services and experiences really that were going to delight the end user, right? The actual user of the product. And then from there, I did a little twisty turny and decided that I wanted to spend some time understanding consumer, and made a switch over to consumer marketing and health tech at the same time. So I joined Johnson & Johnson, which is a fabulous organization, and really was very fortunate to meet so many leaders, so many marketers, so many business leaders who taught me a lot about not only consumer marketing, but about leadership, about general management. And if I go back to your question, how did I get to where I am today? It really has been through all the coaching, the mentoring that came about from so many leaders along the way who have played an instrumental role in my career.
Great. Yeah. I mean, those are amazing companies to have worked at. So you really have understood the full consumer landscape, I feel like. So when it comes to women in marketing, what mentors did you have coming up, and what did that mean to you? And, how has that kind of been helpful, and what could other people do to sort of mirror that?
It's interesting. I think in terms of mentors, the mentors have been a compilation, I would say, of people who were more senior to me in the organizations that I worked in, Miles. And so I remember when I first started at Intel, there were definitely 2 women on the team who were more senior than I was, who took the time out of their super busy schedules to ensure that I got the right training, I had the right experience, I had an environment that had a lot of psychological safety in. And that was critical, right? Because they wanted to see me thrive. It was important to them. And by fostering an environment for me where that psychological safety was there, which I think is, by the way, super important at any level, but so incredibly important at kind of that entry into corporate America at first, I think they played an instrumental role. And then along the way, what I would say is that I had various mentors, both in terms of people who were my direct managers, but also people outside of my organization. And that's been a critical factor in how I build my personal advisory board now, is really ensuring that there is a mixture of individuals, both within an organization that I work with, but also outside of that organization, people who have had either the direct experiences that I'm looking to have, or people who have had a journey that has been totally different than mine, but one that has been full of decision-making that are similar to the decisions that I'm looking to make in my life as well. And I think that's incredibly important, that you have mentors both in and outside of the organization. What I will say though, Miles, is one of the aspects that I think is incredibly important for leaders is to ensure that you also embrace reverse mentoring. And this isn't a topic that many people talk about, right? And what I think about in terms of reverse mentoring is really, how do you flip the script on what we all think mentoring may be? So often it's thought of as somebody who's more senior than you are. And what I think about is who are the people who are coming into the organization today? Who are the people who are joining organizations, whether it's the organization I work for or other organizations, and really working with them to better understand what's important to them. How are they making decisions, both about where they want to work, how they're thinking about interacting with brands or products or leaders, whatever it may be. And so one of the aspects of my personal advisory board that I've really layered in over the past few years has been that reverse mentoring, so that I don't lose touch with the next generation.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important. And that's also kind of the core of our job, right? And marketing, to understand what's next. We've all come up during different eras of technology and seen how quickly things change. And I know just from what we do over here, I'm constantly asking the younger people in our office who work on our music team or with the latest streaming shows, what they're watching, who they're listening to, because I don't want to miss out on some great new art. Or I'm also just curious, like what are the cool young kids up to these days? How far off base am I? And I think that's really important. And again, to what you said about mentorship, having lots of different perspectives, especially in this industry where there's so many companies that do so many different things, it's always just helpful to get the full landscape of what's out there. So I think that's great advice.
It certainly has been helpful to me. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice do you have for women who are in leadership positions today? How can they help bring up the next level of women in marketing?
The first thing that always comes to mind for me, Miles, here is getting to know people at a human level. I think it's so easy to clump people into segments or generations or, whatever cluster you want to call it. And what's my advice is always get to know the people inside the organization. Everybody has a story, and that story is very unique. And I think that this point really became highlighted during the pandemic, right? I think every single person on each one of our teams had a different situation, right? And I think that by understanding each person and what is happening in their life, what's important to them at that moment in time, what are the variables that they are juggling, really will help all of us as leaders better understand how to structure our leadership style, right? And I think what the pandemic shed a very keen light on, if it wasn't clear before, is that every single person has a very unique situation. And leading with compassion which is a word I really like, more so than empathy, leading with compassion and understanding that people are trying to do a lot, right? In addition to really delivering on their goals for all of us, there's a lot that they're juggling in their daily lives, and for every single person that's different, and there's no right or wrong answer in there. It's just all different, and until you get to know each person on the team at an individual level, it's going to be really hard to figure out how to create a structure or a style that works for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, what advice would you give to women who are just starting their careers? They're just getting out of college, or they just got into marketing. What advice do you have for them?
Oh gosh. Okay. A couple of things that come to mind. I think first and foremost, get comfortable with change. Change is always going to be there, right? There are no 2 days in anybody's career that are going to be the same. And that's true for any stage of your career, right? That's true for any company, any role, at any stage. And in building on that, the next piece of advice that I would have is take the leaps. Sometimes opportunities will be presented to you that are opportunities that you never forecasted would be a role that, or an organization or a company or a brand that you'd be interested in, right? But take a moment to pause and be curious. Get to know, what would this role give me? Who are the types of people that I would be interacting with, right? And I think that expanding your view from the perspective of just thinking about your career in a linear fashion and embracing the fact that your career is not going to be linear, but really opening your eyes to various roles, different industries, thinking about the people you're going to get exposed to. That's how you should really evaluate whether a role is the right one for you to take as your next step.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so true, because, so many people only know what they know, right? They might not know that there's a role in another department that they would be exceptional at. And they just, they had this one idea of what they wanted to do in college. And they apply for that job. And sometimes that's not necessarily the best track to stay on. So I think that's a great point.
That's right. And then the last piece there too is don't wait for a role to be posted before you then start thinking about, should I take this role or should I not take this role, right? I think the key here really is own your own narrative, right? Own your own brand story. Interact with people. Be curious about what others are working on, because so often, by the time the role is posted, it's too late, right? Get to know people. Be curious about how the organization is trying to solve problems. What problems are people trying to solve, actually, right? And then I think you can actually be in the consideration set when somebody's thinking about, okay, you know what, we're actually going to be constructing role XYZ, and perhaps this person may be interested. Let's have a conversation with him or her.
Right. Yeah. Closed mouths don't get fed.
That's right.
And I think that's a great point. And also your point about being your own personal brand. You represent your company and who you work for, but you also yourself are a brand. And, when you change jobs or careers, it's going to be who you are and the relationships that you've made that follow you.
That's right. And I always think about personal brand, right? Because when you reflect on your career, and you reflect on all the moments of any role that you have, you're always thinking about that particular focus area, right? Or that particular role that you're in. And what I think about, now that wasn't so clear to me earlier, and I often coach individuals on this, is own your own story. Because if you don't shape your own story, somebody else is going to write that narrative for you, right? I guarantee it.
Yep, exactly. And we are in the business in marketing of writing our own stories. So
we sure are.
Something you need to know how to do if you want to be in this space. That's great. So another question, because the focus is on women in marketing, is what role do women play at the places you've worked, and how has that changed in your career?
Oh my gosh, I think in so many of the organizations that I've been a part of, women across all levels have been the backbone of at least my experiences, right? In the organizations I've been on. I already touched on two women, Amy and Deanna, who I worked with in my early days at Intel, who really wrapped their arms around me and made sure that I had a safe space to learn and ask questions, be curious, make mistakes, right? I think they played an incredible role in building my confidence early on. I think also, another moment in my career that was pivotal for me was when I came back to work from having my first child. And as many women face, I was facing the juggling act of like, how do I actually figure all this out? How do I figure out coming to work, doing everything I need to do at home, and also still being really great in the role that I'm in, right? And there was my VP at the time, she very early in my coming back to work, she set up a meeting with me, and the whole meeting was about tips and tricks on how to manage your schedule and how to make it all work. And I loved that because I didn't ask for it. But she just knew, and she proactively reached out and said, here are the things that have worked for me. Here are the things that haven't worked for me, with no suggestion or requirement of, hey, you should absolutely try these things, but more of just trying to be helpful. And I think that through my career and here at Align as well, there's so many women who have played an incredible role in helping this organization be where it is, and women in leadership positions, whether it's the chief medical officer or corporate communications, but really women supporting women. And I think that's been the common thread through my career as I've grown up in marketing and various facets of marketing. One of the commonalities has been, I've been fortunate enough to work in organizations where women really do support each other. And I think that's key.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say the women here have always been so supportive. We couldn't do it without them. We have great, female leadership all the way down to just, the people that you work with every day, a lot of whom are mothers, and they manage to just do an amazingly great work every day. And I know some of them are watching. So thank you, ladies. We appreciate it. That actually leads me to my next question, which is, how do you balance it all, being a female leader in the space and also a mother of two? What is your method to getting it all done?
So first and foremost, I don't believe in balance because I don't think there's any such thing, right? And that's been true for me for sure. But what I do believe in, what I've always believed in, has been integration, and that integration of work and life coming together. And what that means is for me early on, I tried to balance it all, right? I tried to balance it all, and I was a mess. It was not working out. But very quickly, I sought some advice from a few other senior leaders who helped me realize that I should embrace asking for help and inviting help in the form of, whether it's friends who are helping in co-sharing responsibilities with the kids, or actually making choices on where it is that I spend my time, right? And one of the things that I learned probably after trying to balance it for a long time was really having an active conversation with my kids about what was important to them. And I'll never forget it with my older daughter. When she was in elementary school, she was very keen on, Mom, you're missing out on all these different events. But when I asked her what it was that was important to her, what she wanted me to do was to take her to school one day a week, right? And I thought to myself, okay, I can do that. I can totally do that. And so I fit it into my schedule. And I think it's really about making those choices and figuring out, how do you integrate work and life together, because it is an ebb and a flow, right? But that doesn't mean that I am at every event. I'm not, right? But those moments that are the ones that are important to my family, those are the moments that I make choices on, and I do make sure that I'm there.
That's great. And I love that, just we as a culture have changed the way people work to allow them to do that so that they can balance, family life and work life, how they prioritize, what they prioritize the most.
That's right. The last thing that I'll say on that one too, Miles, is I think one of the most important decisions you make in trying to drive that integration is figuring out who your support network is, right? Whether that's a partner, maybe it's not a partner and you want to do it on your own, but figuring out who that support network is. And my support network definitely includes a myriad of people that are both a combination of family, but also friends who have become family. And without that support network, there's not a whole lot that would have gotten done.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think of all the time I spent at my friend's parents' house and how
That's right.
it always was. Fantastic. So what have some of the challenges been during the different chapters of your life, from before kids and to after to where we are now?
I think one of the challenges early on, I'll say in my before kids chapter was really self-inflicted, right? I very much thought, like many people do, that your career journey is linear. And I very quickly learned that it's not. And I think one of the challenges for me was figuring that out. And one of the pivotal moments for me was when I made the switch from software over to consumer. And during that time, I left a great career in software, was working with some of the smartest individuals, loved my product manager days, but I was craving wanting to understand consumer. And when I got to my first role as consumer, I started over as an associate marketing manager, right? And I think one of the challenges I faced was really that challenge of starting over and being the new kid on the block, but not just being the new kid on the block in any role, but really at the ground level again. And so that was a challenge that, yes, was self-inflicted, but I got over that really fast because I was just surrounded by individuals who were so much smarter than I was. And I was definitely a sponge in learning as much as I could during that time. Another moment was the moment that I described earlier, which is that moment of returning to work. That was probably one of the toughest times in my career, I'll say, because I didn't think that I could do it, right? I didn't think that I could make it all work. But I think ultimately with the guidance of the individuals around me, I was able to pull through. And I think that resilience and embracing the change has definitely been something that's stuck with me and something I try to keep front and center all the time.
That's great. That's great. So you talk about that pivotal moment when you made that decision to switch. How did you know to listen to yourself? We all have different ideas every day of, giving it up and moving to an island in the Caribbean or something like that. How do you know which voices to listen to? How did you know to take that risk?
So I really have to attribute that one to one of my coaches and one of my mentors. And she and I had a conversation, and I had lots of conversations with various people at the time. And there was something that she said to me that really stuck with me in the moment. And what she said to me was, she said, "Kamal, what's the worst thing that can happen? You go to an organization that's full of wicked smart people in a category and a target audience of consumer that you're super curious and passionate about." And she said, the worst thing that can happen is it sucks, it doesn't work out, and you come back to where you were. And the way that she phrased it with such simplicity, it really just neutralized all of those voices in my head of should I, what if, I'm not sure. And it gave me the courage, I would say, really, and the clarity of making that decision and being confident about it.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's such a good point, and so much stress and self-doubt is self-inflicted. There's
totally
really not that much risk in trying something new. I think that's a great point. Thank God for mentors like that, right?
And also ones that don't let you go back on it, right? Because in that same journey, the other important point was, and this was another mentor of mine, he was the VP that I worked for at the time. You know, I definitely called him early in my journey and I said, oh, I don't know if I like this. And he said, remember, Kamal, we said a year, give it a year, see what you think. And that was, again, my first job in consumer. And boy, am I glad that I stuck with it and I followed their encouragement, because it has really shaped the more recent chapters of my career.
Awesome. When we were speaking this morning, you know, you brought up the fact that lots of women talk about dealing with imposter syndrome. Is that a real thing? And if so, how do we combat it?
Yeah, you know, imposter syndrome, you know, what I'll say is a real thing is that feeling of self-doubt, right? That feeling of self-doubt that trickles in at various points in your career. And whether it's at the start of a new role, whether it's right before a big presentation or something else, I think it's very real. I think it's very real. And I think that it also, it isn't something that is only there in your early career. I think, you know, I have moments today where I have those moments of doubt, or I'm not sure that really creep in. And I think in those moments, you know, what my advice to individuals always is, you know, we've talked a lot about your network and we've talked about mentors and I've talked about reverse mentoring, but the component that I haven't talked about yet is your peer network. And that peer network is something I think should be really strong. A very, very strong peer network will be the sounding board that you need in those moments, because they do happen for sure. And my peer network has definitely gotten a lot of texts from me over the years on the daily, and sometimes the text is enough, but sometimes the text turns into yeah, we should have a conversation about this to actually get you out of this moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. I find it absolutely fascinating to see where all the different people that I met when I started my career have all ended up, you know, over the past 10 to 12 years. And it's always, whenever I see an update on LinkedIn or I run into them somewhere, it's great to hear where they are and kind of learn, you know, how they've made that change from where they were to where they are and what they're seeing in the marketplace. I think that's great advice.
One of the other points on that, Miles, on imposter syndrome, some of the advice that I always give individuals is, you know, when they're having that moment is remember that you are awesome, right? Remember that you are awesome. You are in the role that you're in because you're fantastic, right? You're fantastic. And why not you? So that's the advice that I always give.
You call me every morning with that advice? That's great to hear. Awesome. No, I think that's great. I was saying, yeah, I could use hearing that every morning when I wake up.
I'll put you on my text thread. How about that?
Yeah. Well, so what are the areas of focus for you that you're most excited about this year from a marketing standpoint?
You know, I think there's never been a better time to be a marketer, right? I think one of the most thrilling parts of being a marketer is the pace of change at which we all have to operate. And inside of that pace of change is not only technology change, but also, you know, from a consumer standpoint, the media consumption habits and how those change both by channel and by platform, but also by generations and by time, right? I mean, here we are in I don't even know what to call it. Is it post-pandemic or we're living with COVID now, whatever we want to call it. But the
post-pandemic sounds nicer, more optimistic.
but the reality is that it really shapes our experiences overnight, right? And it shapes how people are interacting with media. And I think one of the things I'm most excited about is Gen Z and Gen Alpha. I think Gen Z was the first generation to come along to really demand more from brands and from media. Gen Alpha is taking that to the next level. And one of the things I'm super excited about is how these two generations are fundamentally going to change the way in which business and brands operate. I think that it is going to be a big change. I think the way in which we as leaders even lead individuals from Gen Z or Gen Alpha is going to require us to think and pivot in a much faster pace than we ever have had to before. So I'm really hopeful and excited about what this generation is going to drive us to do.
Yeah, they're really interesting, and keeping up with the trends and their passions has been really inspiring to watch. Absolutely. I think I'll do one more question here, and then I'll open the floor up to questions from the audience. But I think a good question to end on is, how can my fellow men be of more help to women in the marketing place?
I love this question. Don't just mentor, sponsor. That's my headline. And what I will build on there is, and what I mean by that is I think sponsorship is so different, right? Mentorship can be very passive sometimes, right? I mean, it definitely requires time and there's a value in that. But I think, my advice is always, don't just stop there, right? The women inside the organization, they need sponsorship. They need others to elevate their voices, open the doors, provide the access, and really reflect on how and who you might be able to do that for, whether it's inside of your organization or inside of your network.
Great. Well, I'll let all the men know. Do we have any other questions from anyone else in the audience? I see EB's coming back online. So are we out of time?
You have time if you've got one more question. I think you hit a lot of the inquiring minds from the chat comments.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I'm looking to, I don't see any others. So if that's true, then I think that was it for us.
That's because you covered it, Miles. You were awesome. And Kamal, I have to say that you need to be the author of a new book, Chicken Soup for the Brand Soul.
I like it.
Does it exist already? If not, I need you to author it, because everything you said was just so fantastic. I tweeted, I liked, I posted, I shared. Thank you.
Oh, well, fantastic. I'll have to noodle on that suggestion. I like it. How I will fit it all in and make it work. May need your help with that.
I'm a writer. I'm here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you to the Brand Innovators community. As always, I love this group. Miles, thank you to you as well. And look forward to meeting many of you inside the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to Kamal. It's been great.
Yeah. And Ben and Kamal, thank you both so much, along with all of our other speakers and all of our sponsors, all of our partners at Brand Innovators. I am going to use some of Kamal's words to wrap up the day. I think they're emblematic of what we heard throughout the day. She said, own your own brand story, get comfortable with change, expand your view, consider taking the leap, and most important, lead with compassion. So thanks again to everyone for tuning in. Big shout out to our speakers, sponsors, and you, the audience, once again. And be sure to check out Brand Innovators' website. It's brand-innovators.com for more of these amazing summits and upcoming events. Have a great day. I'm E.B. Moss.